6'7".
6'7".
Yeah.
Oh wait, he's 6'7".
That's crazy.
I don't like that.
Yeah, I don't like a big geography guy.
It could be so fun and so yee, and then all of a sudden it can be like, man, this is just awful, and it's just the worst feeling in the world.
Welcome into Overtime, presented by Perfection One. My name is John Bruce, alongside Shayne Combs, and welcome to episode 87 of Southern Ohio Sports Authority's Overtime, filmed here at the Chillicothe Sports Card Studio, located in the SOSA dugout in downtown Chillicothe, which we got to see the back of it. It's coming along, like it's getting close. You know, it's a lot of moving parts, and when you're not paying a bunch of people to do so, it makes it to where it takes a little bit longer, but we're hopeful that it will be open and we'll be able to put together something to show it off to you guys very soon.
It's really exciting, and like you said, it takes some time because you want to do it right, which, again, everything I've known about SOSA, that's certainly attention to detail, and I've said it before, as a longtime baseball coach, it's just really, really exciting to see it come together, and I'm starting to get a better picture of what it's going to be. And for the modern day athlete and for a lot of teams and what they want, I'm telling you, it's going to be a really, really exciting thing and something that I think is going to be a big hit in the community and really our surrounding area.
Yeah, I believe so as well. It should be a great opportunity for different people. And it seems like there's a lot of things where people have the opportunity to go and get better at baseball throughout the winter around the surrounding area as well. So excited to see that for the area, because that just means hopefully the level of baseball, softball just continues to get better, because it's pretty high level around here anyway. But if it continues to get better and better, that's the most important thing.
I agree with you there. I mean, I can tell you firsthand that baseball and softball played at a pretty high level throughout our entire coverage area. So just excited to see what role SOSA can play in terms of player development and so forth there, and just giving that resource to the programs.
Yes, I agree completely. So we had a very busy week last week. We streamed 4 games. We saw, really, 2 huge comebacks, and I think one of them looked like there was a possibility, and the other one, I think there was a little bit of fear going on that one of the teams was going to start to chip away a little bit more. But man, it was a fun week. We were all over our coverage area. We were down in Chesapeake on Monday, Peebles on Tuesday, and then West Portsmouth on Friday, and then Bainbridge on Saturday. So just a really fun week, really busy overall. I also got down to Gallipolis on Thursday, so my car is really hoping that I take some days off this week, which I don't know if I'm going to.
Yeah, a lot of different conferences, some boys, some girls, a lot of different types of matchups. The coach and me really, really enjoyed the week from the standpoint of some of the different styles and matchups that we were able to get. Some high scoring stuff, some great defense on the other hand. So yeah, a little bit of a mixed bag, but certainly a week that I think really illustrates what we try to do here at SOSA, which is spread the wealth and really get out and cover a pretty large area.
Yeah, we try to get out and cover as many different places as possible. We'll have a pretty big number on that at the end of the year of how many different programs that we've been able to cover, and we try not to spread it too thin in any area as well. So that's one of the cool things about like the Haynes-Stoll Healthcare Coaches Call-In Show that we do on Sunday nights, is talking to these coaches from all around the area. And I'm just looking at it right now, 6 different conferences out of the 6 coaches that are going to call in on Sunday night. So it's you try to spread the wealth as much as possible, and we're starting to get a little more headway into a couple of the newer conferences that we're covering as well. So if you aren't seeing as much coverage as you would hope, we're working on it. We'll be there as soon as possible, but we look forward to just doing the best that we can to cover each one of these athletes.
Well, and the timestamps on this show, timestamps on the coaches show, there's so many different ways we cover the kids. We talk about them on here. The coaches call in, get to talk about their kids. We go live stream. We do SOSA has the interviews all over the place. So just a lot of neat things, and you start to get to know the athletes. I know I've started to meet more and more ADs and coaches from a a wider area, and I've just really, really enjoyed it.
Yeah, it makes things a lot more fun when we're able to get to know some of the people as well, and it makes the postseason even more fun because then then you can kind of root a little bit more for those kids then, because you don't want to root against our own teams that we're covering as well. So, we've got some headlines, and Shayne mentioned the timestamps. So if you are looking for something certain that we're going to talk about, check the timestamps in the description below, and you'll find if we talked about it, it's in the timestamps. It's mentioned in some way. So if you want to know all about that Eastern Brown Peebles game, hang on, it's going to be in like 10 minutes, but check out the timestamps. It'll be in there. If you want to know about...
Well, you say 10 minutes, but you and I sometimes we're a little guilty of getting off on tangents and certain things on the agenda.
Which is also why we have the timestamps, because if you don't want to listen to us, I get it. But it makes it to where, if you're interested in hearing about, Unioto's Milee Smith broke a couple big-time records on Saturday night. We're going to talk about that at length. I'm not going to say when, but it'll be in the timestamps. You'll see when, and then you'll be able to find out then as well. So that's why we have them, because if you don't care about what we're about to talk about, you don't have to listen to it. So we hope you do. Yeah. But if not, if one person listens, that's all that matters. So
well, it is, and I would also throw in all seriousness, if you look down through there, and we've been a week or two, and we haven't talked about your team, and you think there's something we're missing, we're always telling you to reach out to us and let us know. I know I've had a couple conversations down in the comments with some people on some things that have come up in the show, or maybe at a game in person, or maybe someone drops me an email if they know me a little bit better, or hit me up on the social media, or whatever it is. But we want to know so that because we put a lot of time and effort into what we talk about. And I know you put hours and hours into the agenda and getting show prep.
Yeah, it was started on Monday this week of getting this show prep going, and we don't want to shortchange anybody at all. So if we miss anything, just let us know. We're okay with being told that we missed something. It's just that's one of the things. What do we miss? So. One of the things that we may have missed in the past is this is something that, we've had discussions to start some of these shows. This one we talked about last week at the end of the show. And when I say at the end of the show, after the 2 hours and 43 minutes that we did the show, we talked for another 15 minutes off the air about something that happened that we noticed. And we want to talk about it a little bit here. And it's, for officiating. And officials in our area do a great job. There's 3 of them on the court. Sometimes crazy stuff happens. And when crazy stuff happens, it has to be even more difficult for the officials because they're trying to control the action. They're trying to control people and whatnot. But it's got to be really difficult. Let's say there's a dust up in some way. There has to be some ways to help the officials in those ways. Like if a player leaves a bench, well, there's a brouhaha. I'm just going to keep throwing out the different old school terms in that. So if there's like a fight or anything like that, there has to be a way to help the officials. But at the same time, I don't know what it is.
I think when you're starting to talk about high school officials, first of all, as someone's been coaching a long time, I say thank you. I realize in the most literal way that the game can't take place without him. You and I were on the road the other night in a really, really good JV basketball game, and a guy was stuck by himself doing or whatever.
Did a great job.
Did a good job. I mean, I'm sure he missed some different thing or whatever. I thought, and it was a tight game where every call mattered, and he did a great job trying to manage that environment. It was a big varsity game coming up, so by the fourth quarter of the JV game, the gym had some intensity and so forth. So I think back to my coaching days, I've always had a high level of respect for officials. Obviously, when I coached, if I was on the sidelines in basketball, dugout in baseball, third base coaching box, whatever it is, obviously in a coaching realm, I was more intense, or I was more invested, or had more of an opinion about every call. Now I find myself, as I'm a fan or a media member, you're able to see it more objectively. That's just human nature, right? It's these coaches put hours and hours of time into the outcome of what's taking place in those games. They're going to have an invested opinion on each whistle or each call or whatever. And I think the good officials recognize that, and there's a real nice back and forth respect. So to the point you're saying of there has to be ways in our rulemaking, and then there has to be ways in different procedures that can help the officials. So if I follow what you're saying, I think one of the answers is technology. I think it's impossible. We watch the highest level of officiating. One thing that's changed in our adult life is the way we watch college basketball, NBA, NFL, college football. Every other play is reviewed. I'm not saying high school's to that point, but I do think we have enough technology where if there is something that officials feel like they want to mark in the official scorebook or a partnership with athletic directors or coaches or something, or maybe even though it's just if it's serious enough, that things can be reviewed or looked back at. Like I said, over the years, I've seen some different things of people leaving a sideline in football, people leaving the bench in basketball. Obviously, if you're calling a play live, you might see a reaction. You didn't see what started it. Those are all just natural human things. So I think in the moment, the job is to manage the game, put safety first, get the game and get it going again or whatever. But I agree with you. I do think there's probably things. And then look, I'll own it as an administrator now of we're still at the high school level. The OHSA has a role to play, but I also think coaches, ADs, and principals, I would look myself in the mirror in that situation. If I had a player, I'm accountable for that. If I would have a player do some different things. And so I think the short answer would be media and technology and some people that have ways to bring, reports to what
Right.
took place. But again, that can have some loaded layers to it as well.
Well, because let's say, and this is a way to use without even using technology, if a player leaves the bench, if the officials can kind of organize the players and just go to the book, because the book has who's in the game. I think maybe volleyball has it even better because they know exactly the rotations. But if you can find out who's in the game and who left the book, then you can take care of that a little easier. But if you're not able to do that, it can be really difficult to, because you can't leave the bench I mean, I saw a player get a technical the other day for changing their jersey on the bench. You can't do that. It was like they were taking their undershirt off and they went to go do it. You can't do that. You have to leave the bench area. And it's that's one of those little rules that I didn't know until that time. And the official that told me about it was oh yeah, you just can't do that. I'm I've never seen. But that was the thing of I've never seen anyone try to do that. So it wasn't it was something you see often. But there's little rules, there's little ways to administer the game. I mean, right now there's if you go on TikTok, you'll see videos of Bill Kennedy reviewing calls and breaking them down, being real smug about. Have you seen this?
No.
Some people hate it.
I probably don't need to.
Yeah, some people hate it, but man, when he gets to say that the challenge was unsuccessful, it'll just be and the challenge was unsuccessful. And it's just but and then he just he breaks down exactly what happened on the play. And that's a professional official with slow motion being able to see things. So how can we expect local officials that have day jobs and are working their way through it, getting better? No matter how good you are, there's so much stuff on the court for 3 people to watch.
Yeah,
that stuff's going to get missed. So anything that would help, especially when something out of the ordinary in the game happens.
Yeah,
So
there's no question.
Yeah, we're not talking about the stuff that happens.
Yeah, we're not even talking about calling travel, double dribble, charge, block, whatever. That's officiating.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? You can all agree to disagree on there. Their whistle is going to determine what the call is. We're not even talking about that.
No.
We're talking about more of a game management stuff, different things. And what you'll find in some of the stuff too, as people dive into it, you get mad at the officials, but what you're actually mad at is the rule. You know what I mean? Take the college football situation the other night. You see it all the time in these big games of targeting. You can have whatever opinion you want of the call they make. When you start to have someone explain it, they're just enforcing the rule book. So a lot of times you're more upset with how the rule is written or what you wish the rule would be than you are really the call itself.
Well, if we go back to one of our streams, it was the it was the Southeastern at Westfall girls game. There was a foul, and there's foul shots coming, and Westfall wanted to talk to their players, and they would not let the game proceed on the 2-shot foul until they had 2 players on the bottom block. And I'm like, it's a bad rule on the first free throw especially, but they're enforcing the rule. Like they're doing their job. And it's just like, I can say how I think that's stupid that they have to do that. And it's one of those, like, if you want to just give up like an offensive rebound off of that, you shouldn't have to put a player in at all. But in the rule book, the officials have to make sure it happens. So, I mean, it is what it is. Sometimes there's certain rules that are written certain ways that we may not agree with, but they're doing their job.
Yeah. No, so I agree completely. I think in summary, for the topic that we were wanting to discuss, I am anxious to see what role will technology play in the high school level now that more and more games are filmed. And I'm not, again, talking about necessarily right at the moment or whatever. I guess I'm talking about more in review or some different things, or maybe eventually we will get to a buzzer beater type thing or some different thing. I don't know, because you never dreamed 20 years ago you'd be certain places you are now. So I'm not going to say never, but that's something that with all the streaming and the different things that take place, not to mention the huddle itself that records so many games. I think there could be a lot of things in review that would take some pressure off officials, because for us to ask officials to know exactly what happened in certain situations when it comes to gym management is probably a little unfair, and probably has to have other game officials or school officials playing a role in that as well.
Yeah, we had, I know of one where the tape was sent away to the OSSA last year on one game that we did cover, and nothing ended up coming back out of it. So it must have been, but it was because the officials had left the floor at that point. So it was just something that like they couldn't really do much about. So let's go into something that we think could definitely be changed. And we don't know why it started. This was like 20 years ago. I think it started where I want to say
20 years ago, really?
I think when we got our new scoreboard, like my senior year, I would like look up during a timeout and be like, I don't know how much time's left. Like, oh, cool, there's 32 seconds left in this timeout. Great. And then as a coach, you're like, all right, we got 5.2 seconds left. All right, I'm drawing this play up. We want to get, Timmy open, for a shot. Oh, but how much time 17 seconds on the timeout clock. Great. Like, what company was like, I think they need to know how much time's left in the timeouts. Like, no one's, as a coach, did you ever look at the scoreboard and be like, I wonder how much time I got left in this timeout?
No, they blow a horn, you got someone in your ear saying, let's go, and then you get out. And then you realize that if you're not getting out fast enough, they're going to warn you, and they might even sit the ball down on you. Yep. I mean, it's one of those things that's been going on forever. And I almost need an official or someone to tell me, is there a rule or a procedural thing that's been put in that I've missed or whatever? But like, it's one of the most annoying things ever. Like, even when we're calling games, we'll be sitting there, hey, we're going to stay with you here. Okay, we're into this situation here, and I'll look up and be like, well, I wish I could tell you exactly how much time's left on the clock. I can tell you there's 30 seconds in the timeout left. You know what I mean? Because again, they use the clock, and I just don't get it. Maybe if someone out there could help me understand, then I could leave it alone. But it's really become a pet peeve of mine that annoying is the word I would use.
One of the, we typically get there before the JV game, sometimes before the freshman game or JVB, whatever. We'll get into that at some point. But before that we get there before the first game, and then we'll be watching that game right before the varsity. And I'll just make a note of, well, we got to write down how much time's left for every timeout, because we can't look at it because there's 47 seconds left in the timeout. And it's just, there had to be at some point somebody was just like, yeah, let's, like, or maybe it was like they automatically put the ball down at 0, which they don't. Like, sometimes we have one commercial that's like 1 minute and 4 seconds. We almost never play it during the game. It's almost always at halftime, before the game, after the game, and it's because it just goes a little over that 1 minute. Some games you could play it almost twice because some officials aren't as quick on getting them out. But yeah, the timeout clock is one of the most infuriating. I can't imagine someone also just sitting in the crowd like, hey, let's have a 45-second conversation. We'll use the clock off this. Or, hey, I can run to the restroom or the concessions. No, you can't.
Or only if we had something like a cell phone or something we could use that we could like hit a button and it would like time it. Or like there's a lot of other ways to do it.
Yeah, and you'll see officials just be having normal conversations and clearly not looking at the clock, and they know the timing of it, and they'll just start to walk over as the horn hits the first one to go over and tell them 15 seconds. I really don't think, A, don't think you ever need it, but B, you definitely don't need it on like a 30 because you get in about 5 seconds after you get in, you get in, the kids start to sit down, either a coach or the officials are coming over and going, no, get up. And so at that point, you have about 15 seconds of your 30-second timeout because not every kid sprints to the bench. It's just like, I know I had a timeout at one point of just being like, all right, just go back out there. Like we can't get any information out there because, we didn't do the procedure correctly on the timeout. We sat down. We didn't hustle over. We didn't do, this, and this. And then I look up at the clock and it's like, well, there's 10 seconds left in the timeout, so whatever. So, timeout clock, not a fan.
Yeah, I'm not. I mean, again, is it a big deal? Probably. A lot of people say no. Like I said, the word I would use is annoying.
Yeah, I would agree completely. So one of the things that, told you, we might only go 10 minutes. It was a little over 10 minutes on that. It was about 15. So
not bad.
Cutting down on what we did a week ago. So now we're going to jump into boys basketball. First off, we're going to talk about our streaming games. Then we're going to get into some standout performances and then some previews for this upcoming week. Should be another great week of high school basketball in the Southeast District. It's been outstanding so far this year. Look forward to seeing some more. But, man, this was one of the better games that we've seen all school year, going back to games that we've called in football, volleyball, and now basketball. Eastern Brown was 71-70 winner over Peebles. Just an absolute classic. 4:47 left. Peebles was losing 66-50 and then took a 70-68 lead with 16.8 seconds left on a three-point play by Paxton Ryan. And then Sam Raymer hits a three, set 8 seconds, they end up putting another 1.9 back on the clock afterwards. And then, Chase Pinkerton does a great job defensively to possibly get a hand on the ball, but really just force an uncomfortable shot in the lane by Peebles at the, as time is running down. Matthew Dick gets the rebound, corrals it, and then time is able to run out. A great road win for Eastern Brown in just an unbelievable environment.
Yeah, I thoroughly enjoyed it. I thought it had a lot of that old school feel that you and I have talked about on the show before. The 71-70 obviously had incredible skill and offense, but it wasn't from a lack of defense being played. I mean, I don't think you'd watch that film and be like, well, that team's just not guarding. I think what you had was a team of two starting fives, even with a couple bench pieces on both sides coming into a game. And we talked about this on the preview last week, that on any given night, go out and score 10 points in a basketball game. And we said probably in many cases they scored 15 to 20. I thought that was on display here in this particular game. The amount of players that contributed on the offensive end with a three-point shot, a penetration and kick, a rebound and a putback, maybe a transition bucket. I thought, you know how big a fan I am of Kane Dotson. I mean, I just thought he was terrific. What was it? 13 assists.
13 assists.
Just outstanding. Just his sense of what each teammate can do and where they need the ball. His sense of timing and target when it comes to his passes. That's the term I always like to use. On time, on target is a big point guard term I like to use when I teach point guards. Recognize what your teammates do well and how can you set them up to succeed. He's textbook at it. So, and then man, give Peebles all kinds of credit. It would have been really easy to go away, and they just wouldn't. And they come all the way back, and then that was a terrific inning. I think I put out. Carson did an awesome job, by the way. And then obviously, Kenneth with his skill set at the end. I know you'll talk about that, but I just felt like it would have been easy for a fan that was watching the stream to turn that game away. Like a lot of times, I'm the type of person, I might be watching 3 or 4 different games in one night. It'd have been easy 3 minutes ago just to kind of maybe start to turn over and pay attention to another game. And if you did that, then you missed out for a big end.
Oh, yeah, you would have missed just an absolute outstanding game. It just had pretty much everything you could have wanted in it. And it started in the JV game. JV game was 65-61. And that was one of those you mentioned the defense being played. It's just the pace that the teams are playing at. You're playing at great pace with great spacing. And that's making it where it's really hard to defend that. So it's not like it was a lack of defense, as you mentioned. It's just, kind of the pace and space. It's just kind of, outstanding point guard play on both sides.
Yes.
Just looking at the stats right now, 15 of the 18 players that played scored in the game. So that's 5 bench players that did score in the game. And, I'm looking at like a Wyatt Smart from Peebles didn't score. He was the only player that played that didn't. Man, he contributed some big minutes late in that first half and, did a nice job. Corbin Florence and Dalton Day played very little for Eastern Brown, but, came in and, played their role when they came in. So,
depth. Yep.
But like Jace Jennings knocked down a 3 for Eastern Brown. That's his first 3-point attempt of the year. Just corner 3, just buries it. Huge shot at the time. So you had some really outstanding play. 4 players in double figures for Eastern Brown. 2 for Peebles, but man, they had a bunch of different guys contribute in a big way. But if you just kind of look at that game, pretty tight game throughout, and then like Eastern starts to pull away in the third quarter when they go 11 of 13 from the field. They missed their first and last shots of the quarter. And then they made 11 straight shots in there. I believe in that quarter alone, Kane Dotson had 6 assists. So, he also scored a couple times. So he's just finding guys like crazy, getting them in the right spots, getting them shots inside. And Peebles, to their credit, did not go away at all. In the game, Eastern Brown shot 55% from the field, 31 of 56. They had 19 assists in the game. And that's just, they ended up with 15 turnovers, which that was, like, if you go back and you go to that timeout where me and Carson talked about how they hadn't been turning the ball over, Eastern Brown, and then immediately 5 straight possessions with turnovers. It was crazy.
But again, a lot of that, the credit to the intensity of the defense in terms of how, like I said, I think, defense wasn't as bad as you might think in a 71-70 game. It really was, as we say in sports a lot of times, better offense.
Yes, 100%. So let's jump over to Peebles first before we get into the winners of the game. Yeah. So on the night, Paxton Ryan was unbelievable. 23 points, 8 of 12 from the field. And he made some big shots down the stretch. He had that go-ahead basket with the 16.8 seconds left, and he makes the free throw. He's 4 for 6 from 3. So, he was just outstanding for them. Josh McClary had 17 points. Man, he's got to be one of the streakier scorers in our area because he had 5 in the first half. I'm not sure if he scored in the third, but it felt like in the fourth he was the catalyst for them coming back because he started to put together some things and really was able to impact the game. He had 5 steals on the night as well, so really impactful. And he had a huge block at one point as well. Connor Gross fouled out late, but he had 7 points, 4 assists. He does a really good job of running the show for them. Grady Canelty had 6 points. He had to battle inside a lot against Matthew Dick, and I thought did a really good job defensively. 6 points for Bo Johnson. It was nice to see him back coming off the bench.
I agree, and even in watching him, I don't know what your take was. You and I never talked about it. It seemed like he wasn't 100%, but I give that young man a lot of credit for trying to go for his guys in such a big game. Yeah,
it was just you could tell that he wasn't feeling great at the time. So, but I think he's probably closer to being back than not. So it was good to see him out there. Keegan Puckett and Braylon Stevens, both freshmen, each had 4 for him, and then Colin Sims, who I thoroughly enjoy watching guard the basketball. He had a big 3-point play in that game as well. So, they did end up losing at Fayetteville 63-60 on the weekend. So they are now 2 games back of Fayetteville, which we'll talk about Fayetteville a little bit more. But this is a Peebles team that even if they don't win the Shack 2, that's a team that's going to win a lot of games, and they're going to make a lot of impact in the tournament.
Well, they're so hard to guard, and I'm glad you threw in the shooting totals there on Ryan, because not all 23-point games are created equally. I mean, sometimes you turn scores into volume shooters, as we like to say in a coaching scouting report language. But 8 of 12, 4 of 6 from 3, it's the efficiency they do it with. And again, that's where you get those 71-70 games, is because it's being done so efficiently on the offensive end. So, the versatility and the talent on the offensive end is something on both sides of the court that night. And you're right. The back-to-back loss is a tough thing for the Peebles group, but they're going to be just fine. They're way too talented not to be.
Oh yeah, 100%. We appreciate all the people at Peebles for getting us set up, and it's always good. That was our first time streaming from Peebles, and it won't be the last. They are just really good people, and got us into a nice position. Got to be right next to the court, and just made for a great place to call that game from. And then I'll just say it now, of like what Kenneth Hay was able to do, our camera guy, of like we have our camera on a tripod, and you can see on our view of the Sam Raymer 3, there's a lot of heads in the way. He was able to like find a space where you could see him get the shot off. Derek had a great view of it. I mean, it got like 400,000 views on Facebook. So I mean it was a great shot by Raymer. But on that last possession, Kenneth was able to take the camera off the tripod without disconnecting anything. At the time, he was super careful about not disconnecting it, and lifted the camera up blindly to try to get the last play. So if you're like, man, why is Sosa's camera all shaky? Well, he's trying to make sure that you can see the play. Yeah. So you're able to see the great defensive play by Pinkerton and Matthew Dick corralling the rebound. So shout out to Kenneth for that.
No
this
question.
Man, he's it's not what he's going to do either. He's going to be I think PT. So I mean, it's like, it's just like get a guy who's going to be a physical therapist but no sports, and he does a great job with it. So we appreciate it. So let's jump over to the Eastern side on that. So they were led by Carter Cluxton and Sam Raymer with 17 points each. One of the things I said at the half was, Eastern doesn't have a whole lot of different threats from the outside besides Carter Cluxton, as he had knocked down 2 threes at that time. Nobody else had. Well, Raymer was 1 for 6. Hit the big one. So he hits the 3 with 9.9 seconds left to win the game. The shot looks really good off his hand. He was 8 for 14 on the game. Chase Pinkerton hit a big 3. It was only his second made 3 of the year. And then, as I said, Chase Jennings, his first taken 3 of the year, he knocks it down as well. And then Cluxton hit another 3 in that second half as well. So they were able to extend the lead and then lose it and then get it right back because of the 3 ball. But Chase Pinkerton had 14 points, 8 rebounds in the game. He played some really good defense as well. 12 points for Matthew Dick. Did not miss a shot from the field. He didn't play a whole lot because he had a lot of foul trouble in that first half.
Yeah.
But then you get the 3 points from Jace Jennings off the bench, 4 points from Braxton Vance, and then 4 points and 6 rebounds and 13 assists for Kane Dotson. Just a great overall game for Dotson.
It's the overall balance and versatility that we've been highlighting here in this segment, and what's neat about it is you watch so many of these guys and you start to watch them enough to learn their skill set, and you realize they could score so much more than they do if needed. But it's about how good teams become great. They take all of this skill set and they put it together, and it becomes far more about we than it does me. And it's winning basketball. It's what's required on that night. Okay, if I need to make a 3, if I need to take a charge, if I need to get a rebound, do I need to get a stop? There's always someone they can go to that's not afraid of the moment, and you add all that up, and I think that's what separates the great teams like this team's becoming compared to the pretty good teams.
Yeah, and then they went out on Friday night and steamrolled Ripley 65-26 to go to 10-0 on the season. In that game, Raymer had 13 more. Matthew Dick had 15. Braxton Vance had 12, and then Chase Pinkerton had 10. So I mean, they're a team. They're gonna get probably 3 to 4 guys a night in double figures.
Yeah.
And then those nights where you get like a Carter Cluxton coming off the bench to really score it, you're probably in trouble because I mean that's a really good team. They've got a big week coming up. We'll talk a little bit about one of their games coming up. It's got some big implications in it, but yeah, it's an interesting schedule coming up because you got Williamsburg who hasn't lost. That's the game we'll mention near the end. Fayetteville, who's off to a 10-2 start. At Batavia, at South Webster, at Cincinnati Country Day, at Waverly. So I mean, they've got some really tough games. Then you got North Adams twice. I don't know if they're going to be able to go 22-0, but man, if they do with that schedule, hats off to you.
No question. It's hard to run the table. Obviously, you take them one game at a time. That's for people like us to talk about.
Mm-hmm.
What is it that Nick Saban always called that, the rat poison or whatever?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like the last thing you'd want your kids doing is watching SOSA overtime. Listen to us talk about going 22-0 when you're when you're playing the 11th game.
I say when you're 10-0,
Yeah.
don't worry about that stuff.
But in all seriousness, it's that maturity of one at a time. You come off of the big game. Is there going to be a letdown in the next one? No, we're going to go in as a better team and take control from the tip and blow them out. So that shows me a lot of maturity too and a lot of focus there. Such a complete team. It's going to be really hard to catch them on the off night because, as I said before, they're always going to have 2 or 3 guys that can get it going.
Yeah, they've got some outstanding pieces overall, and that's why they are off to the start that they are off to. So let's jump to our first streaming game of the week. It was Chesapeake 70, Fairland 57. This was a game that felt like it was closer, and then all of a sudden you look up and it's like a 19-point game. It's just that Chesapeake team really impressive, and they thought they did a great job of slowing down that really high impact Fairland offense. I mean, they held them 8 points under their average while they scored above their average, and really that's how you beat good teams in games like that.
Having a chance to see Chesapeake at the end of last year, really enjoyed it. Really, really talented group. I thought I had a pretty good idea who they were coming into the year. And then for whatever reason, hadn't had a chance to see them in person yet or even on film. Just following some of their scores, a couple things caught me off guard a little bit. But then when I had a chance to really sit down and watch them the other night, they are who I thought they were, which is really good. They're just so versatile. That's the word. They're so long. They're so athletic. I love the Kazee kid. They guard multiple spots with multiple kids. They can play fast. They can play slow. They've got the probably 3 guys that can guard 4 or 5 spots on the floor, which make them a little bit deeper than they appear to be. They're just really, really talented. I was thoroughly impressed with them the other night. Yeah,
that was a game where, Maddox Kazee, he scored 5 points. I think it was like 5 points, 4 rebounds, 5 assists in that first half. In the second half, he was like, you know what, I'm going to score. He ended up with 25, 10, and 5 assists. So just an outstanding game for him overall. He can score it. He can step outside and hit the 3. He can score in the mid-range. He can beat you off the dribble. He can get in the post. And then when he gets to the free throw line, he's really efficient as well. And then, if you watch our interview with, Caden Perkins and Carson Freck after the Gallipolis game, or the Guy Academy game, Carson Freck is just like, really unselfish.
Yeah.
So if, your biggest impact player is unselfish, that's going to make you really good because he's going to get the most eyes on him, but then he's going to find, a John Cooper Barker in the corner for a 3. He's going to find a cutting Philip Thacker, or if they step off of Caden Perkins, well, Caden Perkins is going to knock down a 3.
Yeah.
You don't guard Carson Freck in the post, he's going to score. When Freck goes out, Chapman comes in, he's going to score.
Very impressed with him. What a depth piece that is.
Yeah.
Going back to Kazee, John, I agree with everything you said. That I'll tell you what jumped out at me, like in the second half of that game, of like, whoa, is his competitive juice. Like he took his defense to another level and the challenge that he took on. Because let's face it, we've been on here and in person, we've been in Fairland has some kids that score the basketball now. I mean, they really, really do. And I was so impressed with the way he almost just, you can almost see it in his body language in a very respectful way, that he just I'm gonna guard you. Let's
Yeah.
go. You know what I mean? And like that just set a tone. I thought they started to force Fairland into some one-on-one isolation with some tough shots. I always say make them take tough twos in today's basketball. They were able to do that, and then they got out in transition. And then his athleticism and his team's versatility really started to show up with some of the pace and space that you were referring to just a second ago.
Yeah, it makes them so difficult to guard, and then when they decide they're going to guard you, like, you know, I talked a little bit about Colin Sims on last week's show. Like, you're going to have a hard time finding a better on-ball guard defender. Phil Thacker's going to be one that like. It's going to be hard to find a better overall defender than him because he can do it inside or outside, just really physical, doesn't care about scoring, has a lot of pride in the defensive side, and that makes it to where if you've got like a Kazee that doesn't have to guard the best player, it has that competitiveness, makes them really difficult to slow down. So I also was able to watch him on Thursday. It was a game that they beat Guy Academy, who's now healthy, 63-44. They're now 9-1 on the season. Are the Panthers. In that game, Caden Perkins had 23 points, 18 in the first half. Just it looked like he was shooting into the ocean almost, of like just unreal on that. Carson Frecka, 17 points, 14 rebounds. And that was a game where Kazee didn't even have double figures. And it didn't matter because you had John Cooper Barker, who was really good in that game. He had a really good week, but really good in that game as well. And then Thacker scored a little bit more also. So, you know, this is a Chesapeake team we're going to see on live stream on Saturday down at Valley. They're going to win a lot of games. I'm really looking forward to seeing what happens the second time they play Ironton, because, you know, that Ironton team is, you know, does have a loss now in the league as well. So it'll be interesting. But, like, just to talk about Gallia really quick before I get to Fairland, finally healthy. Mason Meadows is back finally for them. You know, they aren't having the best season as of now. They've dealt with some injuries, but Ty Reed's he's a high-level point guard. They have only a couple seniors, so I mean that most of that team's coming back. They get healthy by the end of the year. I think the second half of the year they're going to be really good.
I came away really high on Gallia Academy when we had them in the South Point game earlier in the year on our streaming schedule, and that's kind of what I said. I am glad to hear they're healthy. With all of we're kind of going through at the time now to be back to full strength and maybe start to hit the stride. There's just no nights off in that conference. That's a really, really good conference, especially in the top half of it. So I don't know what's going to show up in the wins and loss record, but I do know that that's a team that has some really good basketball ahead of it. Mm-hmm. I believe that. So I agree with what you're saying. Down the stretch, they could certainly throw a wrinkle when that conference race and then become a really tough out in the postseason.
Yeah, I agree with that completely. So let's jump over to Fairland in that game. So in that game against Chesapeake, they still had some really nice things happen in the game. You know, Trevor Locko had 20. Cliff Franson really got going. I thought Gerald Love, man, that dude can flat out shoot it. When he's in the gym, he's in range. So, I mean, he's but I thought they did a really good job of guarding him and just not even letting him get the ball, because when he gets the ball, he's so dangerous. But I do think that for Fairland, they're going to see a lot of positives are going to come for them. They're 6-3 now on the season as they beat Rock Hill in overtime. I really liked what I saw out of Kenyon Smith in that game. I thought he really came in and played some really good minutes. Yep. Ford Rickard, I know he had double figures in their win over Rock Hill as well. So I mean, it's a team that they're still, you know, kind of growing and whatnot. And the 6-3 start, wins over Zane Trace and you know, Zane Trace, Portsmouth, and Portsmouth West. I mean, they've got some really good wins. They've played a really tough schedule, so that 6-3 includes
legit.
Is legit. So look for them throughout this year to just keep getting better. They're a team that I think we could see at the Convo, maybe a district semifinal.
Let me ask you a question on them, because I feel like you have a good pulse on Fairland. Here's something I was thinking about during that stream the other night, the coach in me. They're a team that appears most comfortable when they can play with some organized chaos. Mm-hmm. They want to go, they want to shoot it. Yeah. And they have kids that can really shoot it. Against some of the elite competition, for them to play at that pace, and I'm glad you mentioned some names there, do you feel like that I'm correct in saying they're going to have to get a little bit more out of that fourth and fifth score if they're going to try to play some of this level of competition at the pace that they're trying to play them at. Is that fair, or am I being unfair there?
No, that was kind of, I was actually going to get to that point of, like, I mentioned Laco, Franson, and Love, but you didn't have a lot of scoring from the fourth or fifth. So where the fourth or fifth aren't scoring, well, you can tighten up on Love. If you're able to, if a Maddox Goo or Ford Rickard, Kenyon Smith, if they start knocking down, even if it's just like 1 or 2 shots a game, well, that's just going to make it to where Love's going to be more open. And if Love's more open, that opens up everything.
It does. Yeah.
It's just, but I think that's also, a lot of those guys hadn't played a whole lot of varsity basketball. They, as a JV team last year, didn't have a lot of success. So, I mean, they're going into kind of a new thing right now for them.
Well, not very many people like Chesapeake have the ability to guard Laco and Franson straight up as many times as they did, which probably made it a little easier to stay home. And I think that's what Love offers, is he's a floor spacer. He allows his elite teammates to play in the one-on-one. They're really, really good one-on-one. In that particular matchup, Chesapeake probably has the ability to make them work as hard as possible because of that versatility, that length, that athleticism we're referring to.
Yeah, it's definitely something that if they're able to find a fourth scorer, even if it's just 6 to 8 points a game, it's going to make them much more of a threat, which is why I wanted to talk about this Rock Hill game. So they beat Rock Hill 62-55 in overtime. In that game, Laco and Franson each had 14, and here's where it gets really important. So that's only 28 out of their 62. Goo and Love each had 12, and then Rickard had 10. So
there
I mean,
it is.
If you're not going to have 5 guys scoring double figures every game, but if Laco and Franson are closer to like 15 points a game each, while other guys are scoring 25 or more, you're probably winning a lot of those games, because it's going to make you really difficult to guard. But also, shout out to Rock Hill in that game. They're not having a great season, but freshman Jared Bridges scored, got fouled, and was able to knock down a free throw with no time left. It was a pretty crazy play to end the game. They missed a 3, down by 3. He gets a rebound, and there's just not enough time for him to go back out. So he just puts shot up and got fouled. So it was just one of those, like, as a coach, it's just, if you're Fairland, you're like, literally just don't touch anybody, but it's just, it is what it is. It's a high school basketball play. But then he steps to the line and knocks down a free throw with no time left. And forces overtime. And overtime, Franson was able to really take over for the Dragons. But if you just look at that Rock Hill team, this is a team I saw last year in person. Really competitive in a game. I think it was North Adams. North Adams ends up pulling away that really talented team last year. But Rock Hill, pretty young team overall. So I mentioned the freshman Bridges. Rylan Barker, 16 points on that night. He averages 14.1 a game. Aidden Bailey with 10 points. He averages 8.5. Kellen Davidson, 9 points. He averages 10.5. All of those are juniors. So Rock Hill's a team to keep an eye on. Maybe they're like a Gaia, where second half of the season, they're going to upset somebody. They almost upset Fairland in this one. They're a team to keep an eye on.
I think the Gaia Rock Hill's a great comparison of, like, stay the course. As I just said, you're talking about some really, really elite basketball teams at the top of that conference. Stay the course. The names and the stats that you're reading off there tell you that there's potential there, and you just got to keep grinding and know that the better you get, the postseason right around the corner, you become really, really difficult to play against when you're that battle tested.
Yes, 100% agree with that. So let's jump to our third streaming game of the week. It was on Friday night on the west side. You and Carson had this one. South Webster just absolutely battled in it for a 41-36 win over West. It was a game that they were down 22-7 late in the first half, or it was about halfway through the second quarter, down 22-7. And at that point, one player for South Webster had scored. Here's the craziest part of this entire thing that you're going to talk about in a minute. For South Webster, if your last name wasn't Bernard, one field goal in the game between the Bernard brothers. Caden Johnson hit a 3, which, to be fair, gave them points 8, 9, and 10. And it felt like opened up the game a little bit more of like, we do have to guard these other people. And this was just a really gritty win. Congratulations to Coach Norm Pearson, win number 831, which ties him for second in OHSA history with Coach Joe Petroselli from Kettering Alter. Just an outstanding, like 831 wins is insane. If you put together all of my like JV level wins and then your varsity wins, we're not to 831. I think we're not that far off. No. You don't realize how many, like when you coach like middle school soccer and just dominate like I had, like you add up some wins. So but in all seriousness, Coach Pearson's he's done it for a long time. He's done it at a high level, and you could tell how fired up he was after that game. Oh yeah, because that's just the type of win as a coach you love getting, because you didn't play well on offense. Just battled. As I said, 22-7, and if it's not for a kind of a heave in the final seconds, they gave up 11 points over, I believe it was almost 20 minutes of play.
To a really good basketball team. Yeah. Listen, sometimes you just can't make sense of it. You just have to step back and respect the level of competitive spirit. Carson and I talked about in the pregame, and then we highlighted a couple times throughout the call, that the South Webster kids are just winners. I mean, we've highlighted it on SOSA Overtime here before. They just win. You come out, it's a nightmare start. The 1-3-1 at Portsmouth West was long. It was athletic. It was as advertised. It was a problem. They couldn't score. If you're Portsmouth West, you probably look back and you think of 8 to 10 points you left on the table. So instead of maybe opening up a 15 to 17 point lead, maybe you could have opened up about a 25 point lead, and that's just not the way it went. But the ability to just stay with it. Again, I talk about it all the time. So easy to quit, so easy to get frustrated, and to think, man, this just isn't our night. They just didn't do that. And in the second quarter, I thought they were able to just weather the storm enough to get to the locker room. And then as they come back out to the locker room, I want to say it's 29-19. And you just felt like this game's getting ready to go one way or the other. It's going to get cut to 6 or it's going to 14, and whatever happens is going to have a lot to do with who wins the game. And the closer South Webster would get, I do feel like Portsmouth West tightened up a little bit on the offensive end, and they had some pretty good looks. I would even argue they had the right people taking the looks. And as the game flipped and the momentum flipped, I want to highlight, because it's easy to highlight Hunter Bernard, because he had the 25, I think it was. He was terrific. 25 and 41. He was unbelievable. But I do want to highlight Braden Bernard. I thought there was a time about 4 minutes into the second half where, again, you thought, is this going to happen? You talk about refusing to lose. He just made a couple hustle plays. I don't even really know how many it was in terms of it was points. I think he had, maybe 6? Yeah. But, he had a couple steals, and then he had a couple 50-50 balls, and he had some defensive plays he made. He brought energy and effort and a refusal of come on, guys, let's go. We're not losing tonight type of things. And that's what you have to have on every basketball team. No one doubts how talented Hunter Bernard and the McClain kid was. I know he struggled from the floor a little bit. I thought he was still really good in other areas that night, handling the ball and defensively and so forth. No one doubts how talented those two guys are. They're going to go out and get you 30 plus together every night. But you need guys on your team that hey, coach, what do you need me to do to win? Okay, you need me to dive on the floor. You need me to get out in the passing lane. You need me to get an offensive rebound. And I just thought, I kind of had a couple stars next to my in my notes there as the game went on, where he made at least 3 different plays where you're like, I don't know if that's even going to show up in a particular stat, but man, that was a big play. Well, there was one play where he went. It looked like he was going to dive into the bench. I don't know how he stayed in bounds and kept a possession left. Yeah. I don't remember if they scored on the possession, but you just felt when he did these little plays that the bench was getting up, the whole team was kind of getting lifted up by that effort and hustle, and it made just a huge difference in the game, because in a game where you're not giving up points, he gets that steal and layup. I think he might have got back-to-back steal and layups where he's
it was a steal and layup, and then a steal and he got fouled. He split a pair at the line. But he just did so many little things that, well, as you said, it may not always come out in the scorebook or go in the box score.
Right.
But man, he made so many little winning plays. You mentioned McClintock, hits 5 free throws down the stretch, didn't make a field goal. He's his first game of the year, not getting in double figures. Didn't matter. He impacted the game so much.
He did. And
you could just tell legs weren't really there for one reason or another, but he impacted the game in different ways. Easton Large, who averages close to a double-double a game, had 1 point.
Yeah.
I don't know how many rebounds he had officially, but it felt like in that second half he was strong. He was rebounding the basketball. He was doing what they needed. A couple times he helped handle it, getting the ball up the court. That's a 6'5" freshman.
Yeah.
That understands his role of hey, I'm not scoring tonight. I'm going to impact this game in different ways, and I thought he did an outstanding job. And then Caden Johnson, a kid who apparently hasn't played for a few years, you couldn't really tell. I mean, he just did a good job of handling the basketball, playing good defense, hit a big shot for him, and it's just it's a team that you're dealing with the loss of Bo Stevens before the season. He was hurt in the summer. He was going to be if they had Stevens, McClintock, and Hunter Bernard, that's 3 different guys that could get you 20 points any given night. So you don't have that. So you're filling out different roles throughout, and some kids are stepping up in big ways and doing it outstanding. And that's why they're off to an 8-2 start.
I'm glad you mentioned Large, the freshman there. I agree with you. Could have been a very intimidating type of thing there, playing in one of the earliest league games of his what's going to be an outstanding career. I agree completely. Sometimes you're like, man, I'm not scoring. What's the problem? It's easy to force or whatever. He made some winning plays. He protected the rim. He was active inside, strong rebounds. It was a very physical game. A lot he's going to grow from in that game for sure.
Mm-hmm. Well, and especially in a man, playing against man-to-man, he could probably get open on the block against that 1-3-1, even though he's going to be a good bit bigger than what's on the back side of that. That 1-3-1 West plays is so good that you're not going to be able to just get an entry pass into the block and let him just go to work. It's just not going to be there. So I thought he adjusted his game really well.
I want to talk about West real quick too, if that's okay, because the 1-3-1, you're right, is a terrific defense. I'd watched it on film a bunch, and there's just not a whole lot of gaps in it because they're so long, they're so athletic, they're so versatile. Even when they come off the bench, they replace one 6'4" guy with another one. It's just. But we talked on the way home. And with Carson and Kenneth there, we were just talking the game a little bit, and the one thing about it is it puts them in some tempo where the nights they struggle to shoot it, the nights they struggle to score it, it puts them in a lot of close games, and it kind of makes them, is the word I was saying, that I don't know if it's a sports word, is upsettable. Now, I'm not saying South Webster beating them. Anybody in that league, I don't know if it's an upset, 'cause that league's nuts. But the point I'm making is, you follow me? The point I'm making is it kind of puts them in a lot of close games where it makes it kind of tough for them to athletically get out and go a little bit. And I felt like there was a lid on the rim there in the second half. I thought they ended up getting some really quality looks. I really liked the Kegley kid. I know he struggled a little bit in the second half the other night. He got point blank looks inside. Just talk about legs. Yeah. Just seems like he was coming up short a lot. But again, a lot of that could have just been the physicality of that game over the course of 32 minutes. But if you haven't had a chance to see him play, he's really, really good.
Yeah, he's another one of those kids like Kazee, where he can score in a bunch of different ways.
That's a great comparison. I really, really like Will Kegley. I think he's going to be just fine. And then they too have a lot of guys that do a lot of winning things, a lot of toughness type of thing.
Well, and you mentioned. It felt like there was a lid on. I think there was one possession. They had 6 shots.
Yes.
3 were at the rim, and then they get a long rebound, get a couple good looks at threes, and just couldn't get anything to fall. And it was just at that point, it's almost like, okay, it's one of those nights. But man, we got to really. They still played really good defense, and it was just I did think a little bit late once South Webster got the lead. I thought they kind of hurried the fouling a little bit too much. Maybe. We're trying to extend the game too quickly, or kind of get out of what they do, where you're down 1 to 3 points, you can kind of settle in and still play. Now South Webster, even when they were down 15, was taking their time to get the shots that they wanted. But I think this is a West team that's just going to get better throughout the year. And I mean, there's a reason why they have the record.
They are. McIntyre's an outstanding player. Corbin Miller has length. Carrasco, Atkins. I mean, Richards shot it well. I like the sophomore. Yes. Off the bench. Cameron, when they got in the foul trouble, he had a pick and pop three. He's got a lot of versatility. So this is a roster that's really, really talented. They're off to a great start. I think they'll feel like if you were looking at this from the West point of view, you'd feel like you left one on the table. It had to sting a little bit, but you learn from it and you move on. And this is going to be a team that wins a lot of basketball.
Yeah, I still don't think any team is out of this league race until maybe they get to 3 league losses.
I agree with that.
This Wheelersburg team's really, really good. Everyone else has at least one loss, but I do think that with how tough it is to win on the road at these places, it's going to be, if Wheelersburg can go 10-0 in this league, they're going to win a whole lot more games overall throughout the season, which I think they're going to win a lot of games anyway. Yeah. But I do think the depth of the SOC3 this year is going to make it to where it's going to be hard to get through it without having 1, maybe 2 losses.
Well, I think win order. Now, if you win them, I understand exactly what you're saying. But I think just going through the gauntlet of the road test that conference is going to give you is going to make you more than battle tested. I would really pay attention. Depending on the divisions and the brackets and how these teams can stay away from each other, I'd really pay attention to this conference in the postseason. Yeah,
100% should be an outstanding conference to watch throughout. So let's jump over to some standout performances. This is something we've been doing each week where we go a little quicker, not much quicker because we talk a lot, but we go a little quicker, just kind of going through some of the standouts throughout. It could be a coaching thing, could be a game, could be a player achievement. We've got a coaching and player achievement to start, and then we go into a little bit of game-by-game stuff. But one of the best coaches around, been at a lot of different places. Fayetteville's Joby Stewart got his 400th career win recently. So congratulations to him. I know he took McClain to the Sweet 16 in 2022. Plus our biggest live stream game ever. You can't see it, but that was the one where now you can actually see the game because we had the copy of it. The copy of it got a lot of views too, but the live stream version of it, we had some internet issues that night. But Coach Stewart's been at Fayetteville for a couple of years now, gets win number 400. He's got a really nice team again this year.
Oh, he does a super job. And again, I've been watching Coach Stewart for a long, long time, all the way back to, I was trying to remember the earliest time. I'm not quite old enough to remember some of the Piketon situation, but the Hillsborough, I can remember late 80s, early 90s, it seems like there. So again, been watching
Chillicothe at one point.
Chillicothe, been watching his teams play for a long, long time, and he does a great job. They're well organized, they're disciplined. But what impresses me about these coaches that have been doing it so long, we just talked about Coach Pearson, 47 years, I think it was. When you hear 400 wins, chances are you haven't been able to do it exactly the same all the way from start to finish. There's core pieces, and there's foundation pieces. I'm sure they would tell you are the same, but in terms of the little pieces here and there, or some of the things that supplement what you do, have probably changed over the years, and that ability to adapt is what's so impressive to me. The longevity. I've always said this. The longevity of those guys are far more impressive to me than the number of wins.
I agree with that completely because you don't know the type of schedule, you don't know the league you're in, like kind of what you have, but to be able to keep getting jobs or to hold jobs for as long as some of these guys have is
then
really
just the
impressive.
ability to
adapt,
to scout, to watch the man on a film, to put the hours in, to continue to if you've done it somewhere for a long time, the ability to keep little league programs and camps going or different things, or like you said, if you've been well traveled, the ability to go in and create culture, in a hurry and produce. And so yeah, I mean, like just the longevity of it, knowing what goes into coaching and what it does for families and so forth like that's impressive.
Yeah, he's done an outstanding job. Now this year's team off to a 10-2 start, had that really good win over Peebles this weekend. They now lead the Shack 2 by 2 games over Peebles, but keep an eye out on that. They did lose to Eastern Brown when they played recently in the Brown County Classic non-conference game, kind of like that Miami Trace and Washington game was.
Yeah.
But keep an eye out on this Fayetteville team. I think they're going to be in the Southeast fairly soon. I think that's coming. We'll see. I still think they should, but they are one of the. I think it's 2 teams that we cover outside the Southeast District. Them and Amanda Clear Creek. So, and Amanda's going to be in next year. So, for Fayetteville, led by Charlie Kaufman, a junior, 17.1 points a game, and senior Brody Feldhouse averages 14.5 points and 11 rebounds a game. So they've got some different guys that can do it. A lot of different players that are averaging a little over 6 points a game for them as well. Kind of like the girls' side, where they've got some really good depth and can really fill it up.
Good size, good versatility, nice skill set. I've had a chance to see them probably about 3 times this year. Feel like there's some experience there because I feel like there's some names and some faces that I recognize, from last year and so forth. So that helps. I mean, obviously, when you have kids that have been through the varsity grind before, that certainly helps. And you're right, John. You go into the second half of the year. We're in for a real treat in some of these matchups that are brewing when you consider what these conference races are going to come down to over this next 5-6 weeks maybe.
Yep, 100% agree. So let's stay in the Shack for a minute. Lynchburg-Clay's Denver Clinton scores his 1,000th career point in their game on Tuesday against White Oak. When you talked about versatile players, Clinton is one of those kids. He can kind of like Kazee and Kegley,
Yep.
A player that can do it at all 3 levels and does it. He does it with some length and some nice athleticism. He averages 14.9 points a game and 7 rebounds. As a sophomore, he averaged 17 points a game. And, the Mustangs off to a 4-7 start, but look for that to start to turn because, they've got some really nice pieces, and it just seems like they've played the heavier part of their schedule so far this season, and now the second half eases up a little bit. Look for him to have a really big second half of the season.
Nice versatile athlete. We talk about this with kids sometimes too. Score 1,000 points, you can obviously score a little bit, but sometimes it's not even your number one trait. Like when you start thinking of the athleticism, the defense, some of those things. I think that's a huge compliment you can give a player. I think it applies here.
Yeah, he's an outstanding player, and that's a Lynchburg-Clay team with some really good athletes as well. So in that game, White Oak did win 52-44. White Oak's a team to keep your eye on. They actually lost at Manchester the other day, but Sawyer Blair's a player that can really fill it up for them. So keep an eye out on White Oak. So another game that came down to a big play late was Northwest beats Western. Aidden Armbrister with a shot. I don't know if they put time on the clock, but it was in the last couple of seconds. You can see it on our Facebook page, also on our YouTube Shorts.
Yep.
Game winner for Armbrister. And it was one of those plays that I know you as a former coach as well would love. Of like, hey, we're just getting the ball to the post. Like, it's a tie game, so you have a little bit more. Some places will be like, hey, we'll give it to Timmy. He's going to go dribble drive. He's going to make something happen.
Yeah.
It's like, no, they just ran a play, got into the post, and Armbrister goes and scores it. And it's just, to me, just a beautiful basketball of using your strength to win the game.
Yeah, I agree with that. Good execution. You could tell just off of watching it, they kind of understood where they wanted the ball to go. And I thought it was really impressive, too, the understanding of exactly how much time they had to do it.
Yep.
So real good time and score. And, give Western a lot of credit. They've been battling. They've been in some tight games and some different things. I've seen them win one. I've seen them lose some. But yeah, this is whenever you're trying to put one of these seasons together where you're trying to grind through it, these coin flip games are a must. And so obviously that's what this game was when it comes down to that type of shot. And Northwest was 2 points better on that night.
Yep, and that's ultimately, how you end up winning a league championship too, is you got to win those games when you maybe don't feel like you play your best. But that Western team has 4 wins now. Had a nice win over Sims Valley, just beat Western Brown on Saturday as well. And it's just one of those, well-coached teams, a lot of pride in the community. And I think if you just looked at their schedule before the season, you're like, man, where the win's going to come from, because you lost so much scoring last year. They did a nice job of being really competitive. 4-5 start for them. I think maybe more wins than some people would have thought early.
Yeah, that's probably fair.
Yeah. Then let's go to another team that's really been battling, and you mentioned kind of grinding their way along. Adena, with a really nice week for them. They beat Westfall 51-50 on Tuesday. They were down as much as 17 in that game. Colton Garrison has the game-winning basket in the closing seconds. He had 16 points to lead the way he didn't lead the way for Adena, but to help push them. Jerry Francis had 17 points for them.
I watched this game live, actually, and it was just bizarre. It was, listen, Westfall's obviously extremely talented. I don't care what the record says. We've watched these kids play varsity basketball long enough to know. They've ended up blowing a couple really big leads this year, but you obviously have the talent to create those leads. Up 20 at Piketon, you're up, what would you say it was, 17 there at Adena. Yeah. And as you watch this game unfold, they chip it back to 12. They chip it back to 9. They chip it back to 5. And you're like, oh, boy, here we go again. And, if I'm thinking that, they're thinking that.
Right.
And it's – but hey, give Adena kids credit. They didn't go away. They didn't quit. You're talking about a team now that has won a game on the road, hitting a shot from about 55 feet. And then, now they come from all the way down and win one. And I thought that momentum carried over to a nice sweep of a really, really good Huntington team. You mentioned Francis, so athletic, dynamic, the versatility of Garrison and Harold make them really hard to match up with. Adena has a big one coming up now with a Unioto team that responded in a big way. I mean, Unioto took a couple shots there over the holiday break that could really dent your confidence. Well, what do? They come back out and go to 8-0 in the league, and then go and win by 30 at McClain the other night. So
hit 13 threes.
Yeah, yeah. And I'm sure Adena now getting to play at home, extremely excited about that opportunity. That'll be a great test for Unioto. But you're right, Adena, just getting better every time you watch them play.
Yeah, and it was a tough season last year, and it was kind of growing pains, and then Coach Day comes over. He'll be on the Haynesville Healthcare Coaches College Show on Sunday night. Him coming over, from the girls program, and, they've made the right adjustments, and Jerry Francis has been outstanding all season. So they also moved to 7-5 with a 12-point win over Huntington on Friday night, where Francis had 28 points in that one. And we kind of threw it in late last week, not so much in the standout performances, but Francis had a triple-double the week before against Ross County Christian. So, he just does so many different things. You see him each week on SEC Sports Talk, .weebly.com of he's getting points, rebounds, assists, steals. He's just doing little things all week. He's going to have, he's an all-SEC player for sure. He's going to have a chance at a lot of accolades late in this year because just what he can do overall. But then, Colton Garrison, 17 points on Friday as well. That's a really, really good 1-2 punch.
It is, and I would throw Harold in there as well. So when you throw Francis, Garrison, and Harold, I guess looking at it from a coach's perspective, the matchup is a serious problem. So when you go in, I think that's why you see the numbers that you do, is because every team probably has one athlete that they can guard one of them with. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? But very few teams are going to have the ability across the board the way Coach Day can use them to handle the ball against pressure. He can play them in the post. He can bring them out to the mid-range. He can put them in ball screens. There's a lot of different things. I've noticed, too, Adena's starting to play just a little bit more zone. Mm-hmm. That's an interesting thing to me because now they're able to utilize a little bit of the length, a little bit of that. It's helped them through some foul trouble because I thought foul trouble hurt this team a little earlier in the year. I'm really, really intrigued by Adena as they move forward. They don't be surprised if they get someone there toward the top of that league standing. They're pushing to be the third team in that league, and they've proven that they can play with the top two in spurts.
In that game on Friday, Langston Metzger also had 8 points, which is big to get that as well. So right now, Adena's sitting in third in the SEC. They lost It wasn't a buzzer beater as St. Trace, but it was late in overtime. A Noah Kaiser 3 beat them there. So, I mean, they are right there in there. Maybe not 3 losses, probably too many to come back from to get a piece of the league, but they can definitely shake things up for Unioto or St. Trace at the very top. So let's move to another place that shook things up down at Portsmouth at the Coliseum. Portsmouth beats Ironton 73-72 at the Horn. Daquan Woods gets off an inbounds pass, rises up. Really tough mid-range jumper at the buzzer to beat the Fighting Tigers. 5-4 on the season now for Portsmouth. I can't figure them out other than the fact they're very athletic, and, man, they've got some really nice pieces. Woods has been really good so far this year. He had 24 points in that game. Connie Thomas had 22. Logan Atkins looks like he's back from an injury. He had 11 points. And they've got a lot of pieces. Got a really talented freshman group. This is a Portsmouth team that could be pretty scary throughout the year.
Woods and Thomas both getting off on the same night's what jumped out at me in this one. You know, like I've been following some of their games and some of the different things they could do. When they were able to get off together for 46, to me that was a big factor in this. You know, when you look at the ability to score that many points against that level of opponent.
Yeah, and it was you know, I was trying to find the name, and I'm not even finding it at this point. You know, they've got some really nice pieces as well. Kai Berry looks like he's going to be a star, only a freshman, and then it's Olenshae McKinley had 8 points in that game. You know, you got Joe Green, you got some really nice freshmen as well. I think this is the team that, you know, maybe you'll see some inconsistency throughout the year, but keep an eye on them in that Division 5 throughout the year for the tournament, but also shaking things up in the OVC because they already shook things up by beating that really good Ironton team. First loss for Ironton in league play. You know, they still, you know, in the game, Ashton Lane had 22 points. Bryson Mullins had 16. Steven Eisen with 14. Maddox Markle with 13. But the defensively giving up the 73 points is got to be tough for the Fighting Tigers to deal with.
Yeah, and I go back to our Eastern Peebles conversation. I go back to our Fairland, Chesapeake. You know, in some of these conferences, the offensive talent and the depth of offensive talent on these rosters going to lend itself to some games in the 60s and 70s. But like what happens is at some point down the stretch, I think the team that can really find itself defensively, like I talked about Chesapeake earlier, the team that can really go and find itself defensively and get those stops when they need it, that's going to be a big factor in this conference race you go down because, man, that conference is scoring a lot of points.
Yeah, it's a lot of points. It's a pretty fun brand of basketball to watch, and just going to make things really interesting throughout the year. That OVC, as we've talked about, just it's going to be a bear, just like that SOC3. I don't know if, you know, maybe this year we don't have the top teams like a Minford, South Webster that we had last year that make it to the Final Four. But, man, I think, you know, teams, I don't know, 10 through 15 are probably better than they were last year. I think we're going to see a lot of teams that are going to make those district championship games really interesting because I think it's a pretty loaded area this year.
No, I agree with the depth you're talking about. I'll still wait and see on some of the really elite teams because there's 3 or 4 teams that, for whatever reason, I mean, I don't have a rooting interest, for whatever reason, just really draw my attention. You know, I've been high from day one on Eastern Brown. Those OVC teams, they've got some depth to them. If they can figure out a couple things on the defensive end, they're going to be scary tournament opponents because of how many different kids could go and score 15 to 20 in a game.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, 100% agree. So we had a couple more interesting games throughout. Wellston, a 52-46 win over Vinton County. Their first win at Vinton County. Well, I would have to look at the exact date. I was going to say since the Clinton administration, but I can't be 100% sure on that. But since 2001, and they're now 9-2 on the season. It's a team that if you heard Coach Briggs on the Haynes-Total Healthcare Coaches Call-In show from last week, it's really high on what his seniors have been able to do just as leaders. And then they're getting a lot of positive contributions from the younger kids as well. In that game, Justin Jackson, a senior, had 17 points. Wes Briggs, a junior, with 12. Braxton Ingalls, Owen Kilgore with 11 each. So, I mean, they're getting a lot of different players that are making contributions. That's why you're seeing, the Rockets back to 9 wins on the season.
No question. I mean, listen, I watched this Wellston team on film the other night against Piketon. Actually lost the game. Piketon beat them.
Yeah.
And even in that loss, you see the pieces. You do. They're a skilled group. They have some nice guard play. They have versatile bigs. They have kids that can shoot the three. I came away not sure what to think of them, but coming off of Vinton County's win over Meggs, to go in there and win this and get to that, you really start to make yourself a legitimate player in this TVC Ohio. And I could see, I heard him talk to you on the show there, 2 weeks ago, was it? Mm-hmm. And they were talking about how the senior leadership's been such a big factor and the ability to really understand the accountability piece on the defensive end.
Yeah,
and I think that's been a big thing. You go and you hold Vinton County to 46 there, and that's got to give you a lot of confidence moving forward to go into a place like that and get a win.
Yeah, and it's a big rivalry game that you haven't won in 25 years. So I mean, it's at that place. So huge win for the program for Wellston, and you can just tell good things are starting to happen there for Vinton County. Really interesting week, as you mentioned. You go to Meggs and win, but you lose this one in the rivalry game. You lose to Zane Trace on Saturday. But in this game, Josh Montgomery with 20 points, Jace Moore with 9, Brody Maynard with 7. Still, remember, they're dealing with some injuries, dealing with some youth as well. Very young team when you look at it as far as not a ton of seniors.
Rockets with 4 guys in double figures, Vikings with 1.
Yep.
And, you have a couple names, even with Moore getting 9, Maynard getting 7 with Montgomery's 20.
Yeah.
You have a couple guys missing there that Wellston obviously did a really good job on.
Yeah, so you take away, a couple, big factors in there for Vinton County. You make it to where you can hold them to that 46, and because of that, the Golden Rockets get the big win. So now a fun one. Yeah, this one was a pretty fun one to see. Ironton St. Joe with a 51-43 win over Colgrove. That's not the big point in this one. Barrett Waginger, a freshman, 14 points. He hit 2 half quarters, one at the end of the first quarter, one at the end of the third quarter. The one at the end of the third quarter gave them the lead that they never gave up again. So that's something that, we haven't seen we've done over 20 games so far on live stream so far this year. We haven't seen a half quarter hit. And then you see a freshman hit 2 in the same game. Really fun to see that for him. That's something that he's going to, probably be able to fly high off of that for a long time, because that's a pretty cool thing to do. But in that win, Carson Willis also had 14 points. They're now 5-6 on the season, are the Flyers. They beat Portsmouth-Clay on Friday. They ended up losing to Southern on Saturday. One of, if not the smallest schools as far as enrollment in the state. So anything you see in these boys, maybe basketball would be the one I'd be least surprised on with Ironton St. Joe, because baseball and soccer both you got to have at least 9 in those. This one you got to have 5, but still they're really battling throughout. They're in that SOC 3 or SOC 1, so haven't heard a ton about that league so far this year. But for Ironton St. Joe, just a really memorable win for them.
It is. I mentioned several weeks back about how sports can be really, really fun, and they can also be really cruel.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like you lose by 8 and kid throws in 2 from half court. That's a tough way to go down, but every half court shot's a little different. Is there an element of luck there a little bit? Mm-hmm. Yeah, probably. But there's something to be said in time and score of being able to get to a spot where you realistically can get it there, and being able to put a good stroke on it just to try to give it a chance to go in. Where a lot of teams, you don't get lucky because you don't even give yourself that opportunity. Right. So I see a lot of situations where even in the backcourt, I'll see kid maybe shoot the ball 2 seconds too early, or I'll see the kid not he or she won't understand the amount of dribbles they have or whatever. They don't even get that shot off. So yeah, is there an element of good fortune? Absolutely, but at the same time, you got to put yourself in a position to get lucky.
Yes, 100%. We Hunter Bernard almost hit one down at West on Friday, and it was he just shot it like a normal shot, just a long shot. But those are the ones where you give yourself a chance. In that game for Colgrove, Bronson Guy had 15 points. Braden Kleiber had 13. They had won the previous meeting 53-51, so it was really tight games. Both times, the Hornets now 5-6. They were able to bounce back with a 43-37 win over South Point on Saturday or Friday. Just kind of going into that OVC is pretty tough every night because it doesn't matter 1 through 8. You're going to be in for a challenge.
I agree with you. You and I watch a ton of basketball. We hear a lot of different things. That is one group as we get in the second half of the year. I need to probably educate myself a little bit more on that conference. I'd love feedback on that. And out of all the film I get, I don't get a lot of film on them. Yeah. So that is something to really pay attention to as we're constantly looking to expand our coverage and find different matchups that we need to keep an eye on.
Yeah, 100% agree. Now, another team that we've been keeping our eye on lately with a couple of really big wins lately are the Washington Blue Lions, who are now 8-4 on the season. They had a huge win over Chillicothe. I know you had a little bit on that.
It's insane. I mean, we know how good Chillicothe is. You talk. It's one thing to go and beat them. It's another thing to start the game on a 23-3 run, capped off by a half-court shot from Baker. So that they jumped out 20-3, and then they end the quarter with Baker throwing it in from half court. So you're going to the bench at the end of the first quarter, and it's 23-3 against the level of opponent of Chillicothe. They're still up 35-17 at half. I think it got to 40-28 maybe in the third, and then 49-35 at the end. Haithcock and Everhart with 18 apiece. Baker 13, Heath 10. Just a lot of balance from there. It sounded like Everhart had the 3-ball going early. Coach talked about in the article I read, too, that Haithcock was really, really good throughout and down the stretch, kind of not letting Chillicothe back in. And on the Chillicothe side, Cox had a big night with 26, Stone King with 12. But obviously when you get down 23-3 in a conference game against an experienced team like Courthouse, that's just going to be too big a hole to climb out of.
Yeah, this Courthouse team has a ton of seniors, and you named all. I think you named them all on all of them in double figures in this win.
Played a lot of varsity basketball.
Yeah, you got a lot of people that have competed for a long time, a well-coached group. Big wins over Chillicothe and Miami Trace over the last couple of weeks. They did have the slip up against Wilmington earlier in the week, but man, a great bounce back with that win over Chillicothe on Friday night. And this is a team where, Noah Haithcock, I think, is probably one of the more underappreciated players in our area. I know we did it during the fall season on kind of people that are underappreciated, but he averages 12.2 points a game, 8 rebounds, and 5.3 assists as well. So he's also putting together a couple steals, couple blocks. He can really impact a game, has some really good length. I think wherever he ends up playing at the next level, if he does, he's going to be really happy with what they get because he can contribute in a lot of different ways. So he's been outstanding for them. Justin Everhart, 12.1 points a game. He's made over 33s on the season as well. Aiden Osborne, 7.9 points. Bryson Heath, 7.7. You mentioned Baker as well. This is a team, a lot of depth. They had a rough start, and since then they've really bounced back. I think it was like they were 1-3, so I think they've won 7 of 8 since then. So they've been really good lately.
I've watched this group pretty much from the beginning come up through, and you never doubted the skill set. You never doubted some of the potential. They always had some quickness and athleticism, as a lot of young basketball teams maybe lacked a little physicality. That's what jumps out at me now is this group in their older version, not afraid to mix it up a little bit. And as a result, you mentioned Haithcock. I think the reason he flies under the radar so much is if you don't get a chance to see him, the point total may
Right.
not always pop out at you. But if you watch him, the rebounding, the passing, the feel for the game, the way he makes the game so much. The best compliment I can give him, he makes the game really easy for the other guys to play. And I think when you say that about a player, people who really know the game will know what I'm talking about. You know, the way he can handle the ball, he can create you a shot, he can draw defense. He can his IQ on the defensive end, he can help clean up some dribble gap or on a rotation challenge a shot at the rim. Just a really complete player.
Yeah, just a really fun player to watch for sure, and we're hoping to get to see him here in a couple weeks on a live stream. So we'll once we get that finalized, we will let everyone know. So sticking over in that area, huge win, huge week overall for Miami Trace, but a 52-33 win over New Albany. New Albany came into the game ranked the number 34 team on Max Preps, which uses like strength of schedule and all that different. I was trying to think of some old timey term for it, but they've been really good. They're a team out of the Central District that I think a lot of people have a lot of high hopes for. They have a commit going to Toledo, and this is a game that Miami Trace is kind of dominated from the get-go. 52-33 win. Ty Huffman, only a sophomore, hits 4 threes in the game. He had 16. Gage Bowers with 11. Adam Guthrie with 10. Julian Baker with 8. So, you're getting some nice balance there. A 3-win week this week for Miami Trace. None of them close. Over pretty good teams as well. So, Logan Elm, McClain, and then this New Albany team as well.
You talk about bouncing back from some adversity, right?
Yeah.
So a team that's not used to losing, you go through some losing, kind of like what we talked about Peebles earlier on a smaller school scale. And you were asking yourself, hey, I wonder how Miami Trace will respond. Well, here's how they responded. You know what I mean? Like, it's you're right on those quarter scores. I think it's 15-8, 30-15, 38-20. Throughout. So it wasn't even like it was a real close game. You mentioned Huffman. That's just another piece of a successful program. Year in, year out, you have your nucleus pieces, and I just talked about making the game easier to play, and now you start to have these younger pieces come up, and they're starting to develop. I watched him play, and you could see all the raw potential and some of the different things, and so to see him have a breakout game like that on against this level of opponent, man, that gives you a lot of confidence moving forward. If he starts to shoot it with that type of confidence or play with that type of confidence, that's what they needed, was another 6'4" athlete that that could go out and play on both ends.
Yeah, it's a really well coached team as well. So just keep an eye out on them throughout the season. They're bouncing back in a big way there. So let's jump to our games of the week.
Okay.
For this week, we got a couple of live streams, but we've also just got a couple of games that really stand out. We hadn't talked about Wheelersburg yet. Man, that team's good. And another team we haven't talked about, Jackson, really good team as well. Wheelersburg at Jackson on Tuesday has a chance to be one of those really big games throughout the entire season in our coverage area.
When I turn the film on these two teams, I don't know how you play against these two teams if you don't have a 4th, 5th, 6th, 7th, 8th guy on your roster that has a little bit of varsity physicality to them and the ability just to play through contact and some different things. These two teams will beat you up physically. So, they do it with some spacing and skill set too, don't get me wrong. But I've just been so impressed with when they walk on the floor, you see the age, you see the experience, you see the athleticism. Well, then you throw in the basketball talent with it. And I think that explains to you why they're just night in, night out, just kind of beating people to a pulp.
Yeah, it's just it's going to be a really fun game for sure, and it might be fun in the way of the beating each other to a pulp in this one. So you got a couple of really good guards. You got like a Ryan Simons going against Braylon Rucker, but then Jax Carroll's been really good for Jackson as well. He's been good for years. He's been undersized, and now it looks like he's kind of evolving his entire game. You got a Landon McGraw going against, let's say a Buddy Wolford, Charlie Woodard, Stephen Jenkins.
Yep.
And then you just have a variety of guys like a Hunter Bivens for Wheelersburg and Xavier Miller, a Jack Dorr. you've got a lot of really talented players on the floor who have done a lot of winning in other sports as well. Really well coached groups. That should be a really fun one. I know Brock's going to get down to cover that one. That one should be one of the big time games, and for Jackson, not like they have an easy week overall. But we'll get to that in a second. But this is a game that if you don't have anything to do on Tuesday, that's a game to get to. Now, Tuesday, I'm going to be going over to Waverly at Miami Trace. To me, that's got a chance to be a really good one as well. But Brock snuck in there and got this one before I could get it, because this one's, this is going to be a really fun matchup on Tuesday in the Apple City. Just watch the coaches in this one. A little different way of energy that they're going to have, but man, they both have a ton of energy on the sidelines. I know Jackson had a huge crowd when Unioto came in. Now, that was also a weekend game. I think Jackson's going to want to try to fill this place up in a similar way. Their only loss was at Miami Trace. This is a really talented Jackson team. This is a really good football game in the regular season. Look for this to be a really good basketball game in the regular season as well.
Oh, I don't think there's any question. And two, I wouldn't feel too bad about falling back on Waverly, Miami Trace.
Yes.
That's two really good basketball teams as well.
Yeah, I look forward to seeing that one as well. So when I mentioned Friday, we also have a Miami Trace and Washington game on Friday as well. So keep an eye out on that. That was a 1-point win for Washington earlier, as Coach Bartreth, sounded real pumped about getting to play them 2 more times.
In all seriousness, he talked about Miami Trace going through some different changes and finding themselves in some different things, and about how it may be a little bit ugly or a little bit, of a process to work through. Maybe there's something to that. Like, I'm anxious to turn the film back on Miami Trace, because obviously they've certainly found something here over the last couple times out on the court.
Oh yeah, 100%. So that one's a Friday night game as well. So we talked about both of them earlier, so we're going to jump into this. Chillicothe at Jackson on Friday. As I said, Jackson, pretty tough week coming up, both at home at least. But man, this Chillicothe team coming off of a loss at Washington is going to come out. This is their rivalry matchup, probably with a vengeance in this one.
Yeah, a lot of experience on the basketball court in this matchup here. Similar to Chillicothe in football, they're trying to now take that next step. They got to the 500 mark last year. I think this year, we feel like they're going to have their winning season, having a really good start to it so far. These are the types of head-to-head matchups. When you look at your Miami Traces, you look at your Jackson, you look at the Courthouse. I would think Chillicothe has to have a pretty bad taste in its mouth, going and playing Courthouse and being down 23-3. So I would look for Chillicothe, try to get off the better start. Jackson's just such a hard place to play. Jackson's so hard to play against because, again, they guard you pretty much the same way at all positions. Their versatility just jumps out at me on the film, and on the other end is too. They find a lot of matchups, and they're able to win off the dribble because of it.
Yeah, their next 4 games, pretty nice little gauntlet here for Jackson. You've got Wheelersburg Tuesday, Chillicothe Friday. Oh, then you get the next week on Tuesday, Friday at Washington, and then Miami Trace at home. So I mean, a pretty nice stretch for.
We're gonna know a lot about the FAC here within the next couple weeks.
Yeah, and it's right now Miami Trace still has the lead in the FAC, but for Washington, Jackson, and even Chillicothe, still are right in there hanging around. This is a big time game for Chillicothe if they want to win the FAC, because I don't think 3 losses is going to be able to do it with only having the 10 league games.
I agree with that. You make a great point on the smaller league. What I mean by the smaller league is the 10 games. That's a little bit different than some of these other conferences that play up to around 14.
Now, one of the things to watch for in this game is Noah Netter, because for Jackson, a lot of their offense revolves around getting the best shot. They're going to take their time. They're going to find the best shot whenever. You mentioned a couple weeks ago of it's like going to the dentist.
Yeah.
And you just got to keep playing. If Noah Netter can protect the rim, like he's been able to do it different times this year, that's going to make that Chillicothe defense even better. It's just the game down at Jackson last year, we had on live stream, they just really struggled to score the ball. Chillicothe did. this is a game where they've got to score, because if not, Jackson is going to grind you throughout the entire game, and it's going to be a really tough matchup.
Yeah, they got to handle the basketball. This is going to be a game where their dribble pass catch is really contested throughout, and I think the ability to just pass and catch cleanly and play offense will go. Chillicothe has plenty of talent, obviously, to score the basketball, but yeah, they're going to have to really, really take care of it.
Yeah, Caden Cox, outstanding. As always, Andrew Hammond had a big game against New Albany. Cooper Stone King. It's going to be those. I think it's going to be like a Williams. Trying to think of the name offhand. The other really outstanding guard.
Oh, Carter?
Yeah.
Carter Williams.
Yeah. So, they've going to have somebody else step up in a big way. In
Carter Williams will be important defensively in that
Yeah.
matchup because, again, I thought like watching Jackson against, like a Unioto, I thought the ability for their role players to get in the matchups and win off the dribble early in that game kind of got them out in front. So that's something to kind of watch for too.
Yeah, keep an eye out on that game. A big Friday night. We've got a big Friday night live stream as presented by Ohio Health here on our YouTube page. You'll be able to see it. Shayne and Carson will have the call. It's going to be a big one down at Lucasville Valley. You're going to have 8-2 South Webster at 7-2 Lucasville Valley. Valley had a huge bounce back win with a 12-point win over a really good Waverly team on Friday after they lost to Wheelersburg earlier in the week. And then South Webster, very similar. They bounced back after losing pretty handily to Waverly. They kept themselves alive in the SOC3 with that comeback win over West that we had on live stream. Really looking forward to this one. More than likely, Coach Pearson will have been taking over second place by himself at that point. But, man, this will be a really fun game. For South Webster, you're going to see, obviously we talked about Hunter Bernard, Braden Bernard, Bryson McClintock. Hopefully we'll be feeling 100% into that game, and that would really help them elevate their team. Easton Large, we'll see if he can impact the game in more ways. But this is a Valley team that, even with one senior, has a lot of experience. Christian Copen, the senior that just kind of does everything for them. He's got great floor vision, but he can score in a variety of ways. The thing for Valley, they don't shoot the ball super well. But, man, if they can get you into a half-court game where they can really play their offense, and they can get the comfortable mid-range shots at the rim, they're gonna be really tough to beat, because you've got juniors like a Blake Lundy, Jalen Dunham, Jackson Bender, Braxton Conaway, and then a lot of really good young players as well. This should be a really fun matchup. A lot of athletes on the floor.
Yeah, I had a chance to see Valley on film against West, I believe it was. Real low-scoring game, and you talked about the bounce-back games. The same way South Webster was able to come back the other night. You go into that West game, West really, really impressive on film, but you're thinking to yourself, man, is this Webster team really going to go to 1-2 in the first three games of the league? They almost did, but they didn't. Same way at Valley. Waverly's an outstanding opponent, but like with Valley, you could almost sense the urgency that they were going to play with in that game. You said something earlier, as good as the league is, if Wheelersburg could get off to a real good start this first round, they could just sit back and laugh and watch everybody beat up on each other. I mean, you can almost see a picture where they go and win the league by 3 or 4 games. But if teams show the ability to go head-to-head with Wheelersburg, now you've got complete mayhem.
Well, this honestly, because of how that Wheelersburg team has started, this could be a borderline elimination
That's
game.
what I mean. That's the point I'm making. Like, if you're Wheelersburg, you could watch them beat them and then beat them. And it's just, and you run away with it. Yeah. But if teams can show the ability to go toe-to-toe with Wheelersburg as well, now you could paint a picture where 2 or 3 losses would still be possibility.
Yeah, for Valley, a third loss would be really detrimental to their league titles. Now, so a win here keeps them, right in the thick of it. For South Webster, a win would be huge, because you got a chance to maybe get through the first half at 4-1, even with that loss to Waverly, because obviously you would still have to beat a really good Wheelersburg team, but you'd be feeling a lot better about yourself than you were, let's say, at the 5-minute mark of the second quarter on Friday night. So this one I think has the capability of being a really tight game. Two teams that have won a lot of basketball, well-coached teams with a lot of experience in different ways. You had the really good guard play, and should be a fun one for sure.
I agree, and I think the tempo that South Webster and Valley will want to play isn't that far off, so I can see where you get a picture of what that game could be. Now, on Saturday night, when we go back to Valley, for Chesapeake and Valley, that one intrigues me a bunch because Chesapeake, will they be able to speed the tempo a little bit and get out and go a little bit more? Are they going to get locked into a slower game with Valley and so forth? That'll be interesting to me because I felt like in the Fairland game, Fairland will invite you to play a little bit faster, where I thought Chesapeake was very comfortable in that pace. I get the impression now, again, maybe Valley wants to play with some tempo as well, but like Chesapeake, to me, they're a dangerous team to just start running up and down the court with.
Hey, you didn't even let me jump into the game. Hey, our live stream game on Saturday, Chesapeake and Valley.
Well, we're just going to set up tip there at Valley over the weekend and hang out.
Yes, that should be a really fun one as well because, as you mentioned, it's the dealing with the pacing. With Valley, we'll want to play a little bit slower. I think Chesapeake is probably okay playing whatever tempo, but if Kazee can get going, man, that's when they're at their best, is when he can really
I think so, yeah.
Now, one of my thoughts on this one is, does Valley have the interior play and rebounding to deal with Carson Frecka? Because Gaia didn't really, and that's why he had the 14 rebounds in that game. Now, a few of those were me bounds, and like we kind of joked about that after the game of, he just couldn't get it to fall. But he's going to play so hard that he's going to be able to get those putbacks.
Yeah, he is.
And that makes him a really tough one to stop.
Yeah, I guess I said that earlier, and I don't know. I guess I'm still learning Valley from that standpoint. I get the impression that they don't want to play in a huge hurry. Do you see them as a team that would be comfortable getting up and down the court and playing with a little bit more pace?
I think some of their players would. They just the fact they don't shoot it super well from the outside.
You just start getting that score too high. Chesapeake can score.
Yeah. So I do think that they probably want to keep it at like a normal, like an even tempo instead of getting out to a fast tempo. So, this will be a really interesting one on Saturday night. So, as we said, Friday night will be South Webster at Valley for our live stream, and then Saturday will be Chesapeake at Valley for our live stream as well. So, if you want to see a lot of purple on the floor in the bleachers as well, keep an eye out on those. Those ones should be really fun games this weekend. But there's going to be a lot more games to watch in the area as well. We will go over those games to watch and kind of give you an idea of maybe where you want to go if you're not watching live streams, if you are watching our live streams, and you can kind of make your decisions based off of that. So on Monday, you've got Gaia Academy at Ironton, South Point at Portsmouth, and Colgrove at Fairland. Those could be some really interesting games in the OVC. We've talked a little bit about how good this OVC is, and I think these are games, not necessarily trap games or anything, but Colgrove has played well lately. Gaia Academy is getting healthier, and South Point we saw play well. That South Point Portsmouth game I think could be really fun.
Well, it could be, and when you look at those on paper, this might be a night that lets us know, okay, do we understand how the top half and bottom half have separated, or is there more to watch there?
Right. Yeah, so this will be fun for sure. So let's jump to Tuesday. We already mentioned Waverly at Miami Trace. Fairfield at Lynchburg-Clay has a chance to be a really interesting game. Some really good scorers in that. Denver Clinton, Brody Smith. Griffin Friend's been really good for the for Fairfield throughout the season. But another one, Logan Elm at Fairfield Union. The first game came down to the final minute. This one should be a really fun one as well. Both teams beat a good Hamilton Township team on the road this week.
Yeah, I've been thoroughly impressed with Logan Elm the time I've seen them. I know Fairfield Union followed them really closely during the tournament run a year ago. That one certainly jumps out at me. But I am intrigued by the Waverly Miami Trace game as well. And then anytime you get those shack matchups, you know the atmosphere you're going to get.
And then speaking of atmosphere, Thursday, Portsmouth at Chesapeake. That has a chance to be a lot of points. That might be the over. That might be the over game of the week of like, hey, these teams are going to score the basketball. They're going to play at a fast pace. And this one could be a really fun one to follow over in Chesapeake for sure. And then another one, Fairland at South Point. South Point hasn't played particularly well lately, but that's a game where they've got some nice pieces, and then playing against Fairland could create a lot of points and some really fun basketball to watch as well.
Yeah, you're right about the tempo there. And again, you have some really good guard play. You have some good versatility. That will be one to watch in terms of the amount of points that could get scored in that Portsmouth Chesapeake game.
Yeah, 100%. So Friday, jump to the SVC. You've got Adena at St. Trace. That was an overtime game in Frankfurt the first time. As I mentioned earlier, Noah Kaiser had the game winner in that one. St. Trace seems to be playing a good bit better now after a kind of rough stretch over the holiday break. You've also got Washington at Miami. We kind of did a quick rundown of earlier as well. Then Vinton County at Alexander has a chance to be an interesting one as well. That went to overtime the first time.
Certainly was the first time. You're right about the St. Trace. Adena St. Trace. Remember, Adena plays or hosts Unioto earlier in the week, so it's a big week for them trying to see if they can stick their nose into the top part of that SVC. And then, as you said, Washington at Miami Trace. That's just that's a huge game. Washington playing as well as anybody right now, playing with a lot of confidence. But it sounds like Miami Trace has really found something off of their 2 losses and bouncing back.
Yep, and a fun game on Saturday before we get into a couple of classics and showcases. Saturday, St. Trace at Logan Elm, I think has a chance to be interesting. Similar size teams, as neither has a ton of size. But man, those two teams has some really talented players as well. Off to nice starts. Should be a fun one over there at Logan Elm.
I would almost there's some real good talent in that game, the ability to score, but sometimes the way those guys guard and the tempo, I can almost see that being more of an under game.
Right.
I mean, I could see that points hard to come by, and I don't know that it would favor one team over the other,
right.
but. That game could come down to which team can simply hit maybe a few more perimeter shots, because I think off the dribble and getting clean drives to the basket and finishing at the rim is going to be really hard to come by in that game.
Yeah, I completely agree with that. Those are going to be 2 physical teams that are going to play really good defense. And you might see a lot of made threes in the game.
Yep.
But it might be because there just aren't a lot of shots taken. It's just the best shots. Because we've talked about Logan Elm has the chance to – they've got – 3 guys that can really make a lot of threes, and they can do it in bulk. So should be a really fun one over there at Logan Elm. So a couple of different things on Saturday. Also one of those, 1 ticket gets you in to see a lot of quality basketball games. First one over at North Adams. You've got the Dave Young Classic. That will start in the morning. These games are in order. It'll be Ripley versus Blanchester, West Union versus Clay, Manchester versus Western, White Oak versus Georgetown, Peebles against Norwood out of Cincinnati. So that one should be a pretty fun one. And then this one, Eastern Brown against Williamsburg. Both are undefeated. Might have been a big transfer going from Eastern Brown to Williamsburg. That's going to make that one even more interesting. That's the game. Like, you get these other games that are going to be good anyway.
Yeah.
But man, that one's got the chance to really be a big time showcase game, and then it's going to finish. There's a girls' game, and then the night finishes with Minford at North Adams to close out the Coach Young Classic.
Yeah, well, just an incredible lineup there, and as you mentioned, you have some really elite teams, and they're going to push themselves and some non-conference action there. And what I like about it's the variety. Whenever you do those things, if you're just a basketball junkie, you like to see a lot of different types of teams, a lot of different types of matchups, a lot of different styles, and it gives you a good feel for teams as we start to get closer and closer to the tournament draw.
Yeah, it should be a fun day over at North Adams. Once again, that's a 1 ticket gets you in for all. I think Good Guys probably has that. Usually I think they have that showcase as well, like they did the Chad Hodson Classic over at Fairfield. last weekend. So then you can move down to Portsmouth. Also, the Buckeye Elite Showcase. I think this is $8, gets you into every one of these games as well.
Wow.
This is going to be in order as well. Colgrove against Eastern Pike. Notre Dame against Crooksville. Notre Dame had a big win over Green at the buzzer the other day to deal with some big-time adversity through their week as well. And then you've got Ironton against West. That one's going to be a really fun one. That's a big-time, like, styles clash type of game of is West going to be able to keep Ashton Lane off the glass? Is Ironton going to be able to be patient enough to deal with that, that West 1-3-1? So that one should be a really fun one. You got Schroeder Padilla against Fairland. Schroeder Padilla scores a lot of points as well. That's going to be a big time, like up and down game. Miami Valley Christian Academy against Wheelersburg. MVCA. One of the better teams in their division out of the Miami Valley, obviously, taking on a Wheelersburg team that has shown that they can play at different styles throughout the year. So that one will be a fun one. And then it's going to finish with Lewis County against Portsmouth. Lewis County gave up 84 while also scoring 72 against Wheelersburg early. And then any teams that from Kentucky, they're going to play kind of a wide open style. That's got a chance to be a really fun day over at Portsmouth.
Yeah, a lot of offenses you look through there, or at least the potential to be. You do have some interesting matchups. It's always interesting to get some schools that maybe are a little bit outside the area, because again, if you just enjoy the game of basketball, what that does is it offers you some different styles, some different looks, as you say, and kind of can help your team. Obviously, the ones that jump out at you. I wanted to make note of Eastern Pike.
Yes.
Jumped out at me on film. I had a chance to see them on film this week for the first time, and there's a lot of potential there. So I know they're a team that got off to a tough start a little bit. Play a really good schedule.
Yeah.
But their basketball team has some potential.
Yeah, Boston Webb's an outstanding player for them. They're a well-coached team, and they've got some nice pieces. Good physicality as well for them. Got a lot of guys that are relearning the game a little bit after not playing for a couple of years, which could make them a really dangerous second-half team, especially in that SOC too.
I think you're spot on there.
Yeah, so let's jump over to the girls' side.
Yep.
First up is going to be a big-time record breaker here. Unioto's Milee Smith becomes Unioto's all-time leading scorer, now at 1,765 points, I believe. I'd have to go back and look at that. But she also became Unioto's single game scoring leader with 45 points, both done in the same game. On Saturday night, the Dayton commit has just been unbelievable for 4 years. She's tracking towards, still has to do a second half of the year, but tracking towards a 56-0 SVC record throughout her career. Just absolutely dominant throughout, but man, she can do it in so many different ways. And this really, she scores 35 in the first half of that game. It just felt like it was a game where it was almost like, all right, hey, Milee, go get the record tonight. Because she's so unselfish. Like, she had a game earlier this year where she had 20 in the first half and just took one shot in the second half. Just decided she's going to get her teammates involved. Yeah. This was a game where it felt like, okay, Saturday night, probably a pretty big crowd, was a night of like, hey, you had this big first half, let's go get it. But so congratulations to her. She breaks Aubrey Eblin's career record, which was 1,751 career points. So she broke that record. She needed 31 going into the game to tie it. Gets 45, obviously a good bit more there. And then Danelle Speakman, who went on and ran track at Cincinnati, had 44 points in a game against St. Trace in the 2005 season. So congratulations to her. Just an outstanding overall player.
She really is. I went home last night after our stream, and I obviously got the news that she had done that. I turned the film on and watched the first. I want to say she had 25 in the first quarter. And if I'm being honest, it was kind of easy. You know what I mean? Like that's what impresses you about the elite scores is how easy they score. They'll create some with their defense and they'll go lay it in on the other end, or she'll just kind of walk into some threes, or and then obviously, she has the the advantage of playing on a really, really elite team. So her team, her overall team is going to turn you over quite a bit, and they're going to get a lot of possessions, and they're going to play at a pace. Unioto can pretty normally score 25 to 30 in some of these opening quarters to start the year. They've been well up over 40, even over 50 sometimes in the first half. So yeah, she's a terrific player. She's added something to her game each year. The ball handling is improved year by year. The shooting is improved. Got off to somewhat of a tough start this year shooting it. I really think that's returned over the last couple weeks. She gets to the free throw line, shoots it at a high percentage there. And then it's her defense and rebounding that's really been added this year. I think she's really become more of a complete player, and she's really obviously can score. I mean, she's going to score close to 2,000 points in her career, but she's a kid that really can impact the game in a lot of different ways.
Yeah, and her ability to really compete, I think, has grown throughout as well. As it seemed like when you saw her early on, it was just kind of like, not going through the motions, but like just playing. Now it's like it's to win. Like it's like I'm going to go beat you. They're 11-1 on the year. Their loss came in a game they were winning as she gets hurt in the first half, couldn't return, and they end up losing that game to a really good Bishop Hartley team. So, when she's been on the floor for more than 12 minutes this year, they haven't lost, and I think you're going to see a lot of that. Their schedule does get has a couple of tough games this week. We'll talk about that later on. But this is a team, as you mentioned, really good team. Maggie Holbert is a really good player. You've talked about her before, where she comes over, and if she stays at her first school, maybe is a 1,200, 1,500 point scorer. But now she's going to be like a 750 point scorer at Unioto, where she defers and plays really good defense, handles the ball, and has been a really good teammate for them. And then Kiara Beard, one of the best shooters in our area, boys or girls, because when she gets her feet set, man, that shot's really nice. And Charlotte Dennis has really grown as a player as well.
Yeah, it really is. And like I said before, the first task is just being able to dribble, pass, and catch against the group without them just taking it from you and going and laying it on the other end. And then when you do try to guard them in the scrimmage area, you can try to throw everything at her and maybe limit her to 20. But in doing so, what have you allowed 3 or 4 other people to do? Because as I said, a lot of times what happens on the really, really good teams is you have kids that they're capable of scoring this. They'll go ahead and be willing to score this to make it easier to win. You know what I mean? So that's kind of what you have there. But no, she's terrific. She's certainly in the discussion to the best to ever do it in the Ross County area on that female side. Yeah,
she's been outstanding and will be fun to watch as well. So let's jump to a game that I think maybe the result didn't surprise us, but maybe one of the teams has kind of surprised us throughout the year. Waverly with a 58-56 win over West. We saw Waverly early in that Piketon game. They just did not look very good, like, to be completely honest. Piketon did a really good job against them and just made them very uncomfortable. They looked not very good offensively. Then they bounced back with a couple wins, and then they go to Logan Elm, and Logan Elm kind of had their way with them. But, man, Coach Bonifield and his staff at Waverly, along with the players, obviously, have really figured something out, and they've had a great run, 8 straight wins now, including this one over a really good West team. Paige O'Brien had 31 points, 6 rebounds. She's over 500 career rebounds. I know she's closing in on 1,000 points as well. Sadie Royster had 13.7 rebounds in this game as well. A great win for Waverly.
I agree with you. Look, we know Piketon and Logan Elm are really good basketball teams, but you just weren't sure what to make of Waverly on the opening night. From the eye test, athletically, they had some great length. They had some great athleticism. We had watched kids from other sports. Maybe it's track, maybe it's volleyball, maybe it's whatever. You know what I mean? So we didn't question the athleticism. Then they come back, they get a couple wins. They're like, oh, they kind of rebounded well. Well, then another week would go by, like, oh, well, they got another one. Then all of a sudden you start to see scores like this, and you're like, wait a minute now, we really got to. So it's a great example of how you play early in the year against good competition. You get exposed maybe a little bit, but then you find out a lot about yourself, and then you go to work and you start to clean those things up. I think the biggest thing that jumps out at me is when they handle the basketball and you start to see athletes like O'Brien and Royster get opportunities to play offense, play in space, create some shots, create turnovers. It's there. I mean, this is becoming a really, really good basketball team.
Yeah, it's a really good basketball team that's put together a lot of wins as well. So, as we mentioned, 8 straight. They beat Guy Academy 57-51. We'll preview one of their big games coming up. That's on Monday, which I'll actually be able to get there and see them in person for the first time since that Piketon game. So, for West, Braley Pistol with 23 points, 8 rebounds in that game. Macy Wisman had 15 points. She did leave late with an injury. She had a walking boot on Friday at the game for the West game that we were at.
Yeah.
Now, what I was told was when she left with the injury, they were down like 8. So it wasn't like that was a game changer in it. They just battled back, they scored at the buzzer to cut it to 2. So
that could certainly be a factor.
That could be a
forward.
huge factor moving forward because she can really impact the game. Offensively, but really defensively as well. She's a really, really nice all-around player for them. So keep an eye on that. I would say that may have had a factor for their loss against Alexander on Saturday, but that Alexander team's really good as well. So West now 10-3, still having a really nice season, but things could get a good bit tougher if they don't have Wisman because they, in that game against Minford that we had them on live stream, they didn't shoot the ball really well from the outside. Didn't shoot the ball really well from the outside in this one either. Just keep an eye out on this. This is a West team that's going to win a lot of games. Yeah. But overall, a great win for Waverly.
No, I agree with everything you said. I think Waverly is really, really continue to improve. I'm anxious to see them again and become a really dangerous team into the tournament. But I wouldn't give up on that West team. Hopefully they're healthy there because that would be a really, really key loss. But at 10-3, they're still primed for an outstanding season here if they can finish strong.
Yeah, and then let's jump to another game. I originally had it in standout performances, but I just want to talk about it separately. Is Portsmouth-Clay, a 46-42 win over Notre Dame. I don't know how long it's been because Notre Dame didn't lose a league game in 10 years. I don't know how long it's been since Clay beat them. It has been a long time since Portsmouth-Clay beat Notre Dame in girls basketball. They didn't score in the first quarter, and they come back and win this game. So just an outstanding win for Clay. Now 11-2 on the season in this game. Sophia Kraft had 15, Ava DeMorris had 14, and Emma Emnett had 13. So really nice balance there for the Panthers. Just a great win for them.
I thought it was a really mature win because you think about what you're saying. We understand what Notre Dame's been in that conference for a long, long time. So you go and you come into a game and you start to think, okay, this is an opportunity for us to do this. We've been waiting a long time to be in a position to be able to do this. And then you go out in the first quarter and you drop the goose egg, right? So it's like, oh, no, here we go again. It would have been really easy to kind of almost go to a panic of like, oh, wait a minute, maybe we're not good enough to do this. You don't see that at all. You come back and they score, 46 points over the next 3. So been real impressed with their ability to share the basketball. There's some good skill set there, some kids that can really score it.
Yeah, so for Notre Dame in that game, Jason Bryant had 22. But just overall, for Clay, it's a program that you've seen just not a whole lot of players. So you don't have a whole lot of players. You're playing at a small school. They've done a really good job of rebuilding. Kraft has been a huge part of that. Emnett's been a huge part of that. But when you're getting players like DeMorris that are really able to contribute in a big way for you, that means it's going to be more than just a this year thing because you're going to have Emnett and DeMorris back as well. Not a whole lot of depth there, obviously. I mean, when you have 7 players on the roster, and I think it might only be 6 at this point, you're going to see, it's going to be tough if you get in foul trouble, but they've done a really good job of picking up wins. Coach Emnett will be on the the Haynesville Healthcare Coaches Call-In show. Look forward to talking to him. Just kind of when you've got 6 players, when you're putting together, got to get one more win, and you're going to have a winning season, I think says a lot for what they've been able to do. In that game against East Clinton on Saturday, Emmett had 30 points in a 44-28 win. So they've got players that can really fill it up, or they've got the balance as well.
Well, and that's what I can't wait to listen to the coach talk about his team. He's got to be extremely proud of his team. But what jumps out at me is they seem to really like one another, and they seem to really put the group first, because you have a lot of role identification there, but at the same time you have some kids that can really take over a game if the matchup's in their favor. Well, you know how sports works. It seems like that's also okay with all the other teammates.
Right.
I mean, so it's one of those things where it still takes an incredible defensive effort sometimes to hold teams to a certain point total or whatnot. So they may only have the small roster, but it seems like they're getting contribution in some way in terms of winning from each of them.
Yeah, finding different ways for each player to make a contribution. That's really, yeah, and it even with like that keeps kids around, and it's going to keep more investment, and then eventually that's going to add more. Even though the school is very small,
right? You
can still add on to that roster, and that's going to make you better and better, and this can be more sustainable than just a.
What excites the junior high teams, they start to look at it, and then, if you have some individuals at a small school, I know sometimes what happens is they start looking around thinking like, man, is the grass greener over at the bigger school over here? This gives you a chance to be like, no, hey, look at what we're doing right here. Continue to work on your game, and you can come be a part of this.
Yes, and it's in a big way. So great to see for Clay. Let's move to our standout performances. So once again, this will be could be a coaching accomplishment, player accomplishment, just overall games. That's a lot of what we're going to talk about in this is just overall game performances throughout. Let's start with our girls stream game of the week. On Saturday, we had Paint Valley just put on a defensive clinic. Didn't score a lot, but defensive clinic for the Lady Bearcats in what was their 7th win of the season.
That's exactly what it was, is a defensive clinic. I mean, it was really, really impressive in the scrimmage area, starting with ball pressure, next pass in line, good front of the post. Their ball screen defense was outstanding. It's impossible to start saying one kid's name without mentioning the entire roster, because it was that impressive. What I mean? But like we ended up giving our Kingston National Bank player of the game to Emily Burke, and she was terrific. And I know you talked to Karis Dye a little bit as well. I thought Izzy Garnes had come in and given real good minutes in the second quarter. Deja Crowder defensively does a super, super job. Whitney Utes. And then, some of the senior leadership from a Delaney Mannion, a Nevi Conley. It's just it's a good group. I may be Maya Collier. I don't have the roster in front of me. I might be missing someone. But the reason I try to name all the kids is because, like you said, you don't guard in the half court the way they did without all 5 players being connected. And it was really impressive. We've watched Zane Trace go out against a lot of SVC teams and put up some 40-point games, and they just come off of an overtime win against River Valley, a nice team out of the TVC Ohio. And you're right, Paint Valley had trouble scoring to truly blow them out, but like defensively, they left no doubt pretty much from the word go.
Yeah, it was an outstanding performance. And now one of the things we always do this is going to be like, we're not going to be even able to clip it this week because there was none. We didn't have a charge taken any of the weeks. You mentioned her as one of them. I think our Perfection 1 collision of the week would have been Delaney Mannion. She came over and took a lot of contact, and what didn't end up getting called as a charge. Yes. It was late in the fourth quarter in a game that was in a pretty good spot for them, and slid over, being a good teammate, just trying to take a charge and ends up not getting called. There was no call on the play,
right?
But it was just one of those things where you see players being unselfish and being a leader, and that's one of the things. Now, to kind of go into the Perfection 1. They do have places in Pickaway, Pike, and Ross County. If you run into them, you'll meet why they are highly recommended. You'll meet them by accident. Do you have any other crash puns?
I don't.
No. So
I do want to say the versatility. We talk about versatility throughout the. I thought Whitney Oots,
Yes,
her length too. At one point in the first quarter last night, I mean, we're only talking 5 or 6 minutes in. I think Paint Valley had like 5 different kids on ball defense. I mean, and so it just showed their versatility in the way they could just, Coach Norman can run a lot of kids at you. And we talk about scoring balance so much. I think one thing that makes a team a great defensive team is their balance and having a bunch of different kids that can pressure the ball, a bunch of different kids that can get out in the passing lane, a bunch of different kids that know how to guard ball screens. And I thought that was really on display.
Yeah, and then you mentioned that Emily Burke was our Kingston National Bank player of the game. Like, I knew she was fast. Like, I knew she was fast. But, man, there were some times in that game where she was just tracking from behind, just unreal, just flying all over the floor on that, and just was outstanding throughout. And I know it was likely her best game that she's had so far.
Oh, I don't think there's any question. I think she showed some confidence with the basketball. She played with some pace. Now, when Zane Trace went to the zone in the second half, a little bit of the youth in the backcourt showed up. And again, that's just part of it. I mean, you're going to go through your growing pains. The key is, do you learn from it? Do you continue to grow? As you're trying to become a better ball handler, are you willing to take the practice floor and take it into a game and learn how to counter and learn how to do different things? If the answer is yes, that athleticism, the sky's the limit.
Yeah, 100% agree. So for Zane Trace, a lot of foul trouble in the game. I thought Emma Houston did a nice job of battling back in that second half. They're gonna be okay. It's a program that's been making their way back for a while. I think Coach Singer's doing a nice job with them. It was just one of those nights where you get into a lot of foul trouble and just really struggle to score. But I thought I was happy to see how they kept playing hard throughout the entire night.
Well, it's just a matchup thing. I think they turned it over on my sheet unofficially like 20, 21 times maybe in the first half. Only ended up turning over 8 or 9 in the second half. But yeah, it's just a matchup thing. If they get in the matchups where they're able to handle the ball, they have some kids that can score. They have some length themselves. I was impressed with a little bit of their zone. The problem is when you're trying to come from 20 down, it's hard to play at a tempo where you're just going to chip away at it a little bit, right? At some point, you got to have a little spurtability. So yeah, if you're Zane Trace, the key is not to let this performance take away from some of your momentum that I said one thing in the SVC. This affects both Paint Valley and Zane Trace here in their upcoming games. Southeastern becomes a dangerous team in that league as they're fighting for that fourth place spot. A team like Paint Valley is, because with Ruckle back and them being at full strength, I don't know if you agree with me. It's hard for me to paint a picture where Southeastern's going to go 0-14. I mean, like right now they're 0-8. Like they almost beat Piketon last night.
Right.
They played Piketon to a really close game. So they're going to get someone, probably a couple. You've got to make sure it's not you if you're trying to compete for those spots in the standings that we're talking about.
Well, that was one of the things I kind of wanted to mention. I just threw it in there of like, Southeastern, they get 24 points from the Ruckles. And it's they're just a horrendous matchup for the entire league because they do what they do really well. They rebound without fouling. They make layups. Yeah. They use their length and strength without doing it recklessly, and that just makes them a really tough matchup. And then Gracie Brown's a nice player as well. So, I mean, they've got some pieces. They're going to win some games. They're a well-coached group, and it's just, you get off to a bad start. You get off to a bad start, and it's just how do you react to that? And I with a 46-41 loss to a really good Piketon team.
Yeah. I think they led by 1 at halftime. Might have only been down like a point going into the fourth. I don't have that in front of me, but give Piketon credit. I mean, look, my challenge to Piketon this year was, can you get to 12-2? Can you separate yourself from everyone else in the league? So far, the answer is yes. They almost let Westfall off the hook the other night after being way up. I think that game got back to one possession. Obviously, last night, Southeastern. But Piketon's finding a way to win. So far, they've been able to do that. And I've just been impressed with their growth, as this group's pretty much been on the varsity level since day one together, and they're growing.
Yeah, in that game, Piketon moves to 10-3 Layla Kelly had 12. And how's this for balance, by the way? Layla Kelly had 12. Jalen Forbes with 11. Maddie Hale with 9. Reese Shanks with 9. So, I mean, you're getting, you didn't have 4 in double figures, but you had 4 combined for 41. So, I mean, it's 42. Yeah, 42. So, quick math. It's just, I'm not a math teacher, technically. Some days I am. But, for a Piketon team, as you mentioned, not a lot of seniors. You have Hale. I know they have another senior as well, but not a lot of seniors. So you're going to see kind of what you're getting this year is going to keep building into next year. So you mentioned if they can separate themselves this year, and then next year they may be the favorite going into the year because of what Unioto graduates. So this is a Piketon team that's got a chance to make a lot of noise in the postseason as well. So keep an eye out on Piketon 10-3. We're going to have them coming up. Hopefully, we got to get complete verification on that. But I know we'll have them again on our stream at one point this season. But look for that Piketon team. And then let's stay in the SVC. A really nice win for McClain, but I was really impressed with what Adena was able to do. A 36-32 win for McClain over Adena. The stars were on display in this one. Paisley Pryor had 21 for the Tigers. Marley Halcomb had 18 and 12 for Adena. So ultimately ends up kind of coming down to those supporting cast. Lara Henson had 8 for McClain, and they were able to hold off the Warriors for a really good win.
I love this McClain team. I did last year. This year again, their toughness, their winners. Pryor's really, really good. Again, when they get that second, third kid involved in the scoring, they're going to be tough to beat. Obviously, they're trying to repeat there in the fact. But over on the Adena side, we talked about them last week and what Halcom's doing. But I think what should also be mentioned is this is a basketball team right now, John, that's what's separating them. There's not a huge talent gap like there's been in the past with some of the Adena teams.
Yes.
There's a little bit of a talent gap, but what the big gap is between Adena and the rest of the teams trying to chase them for that 3 spot is just some of their fundamentals and their execution on the offensive end. There's some kids with the Farrells, J.C. Jones. Mallow, the freshman's been really, really good. She's getting some favorable matchups because of the attention Halcomb, and she's really taking advantage of it. But they don't turn the ball over very much. Like, they're one of the SVC teams that competed with Unioto the best. Obviously here going toe-to-toe with McClain. And a big reason why is when they start to run some offense, they don't turn it over.
Right.
And then you take a kid as talented as Halcomb, as we highlighted on last week's show, and you're always going to have a chance.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and it's just, Halcomb averaging 16.9 points a game so far this year. They're now 7-6, had a tough start to the year, and have ultimately made their way back, and that's what's made them a big-time threat here late in the year. I think this is a Adena team, it's kind of a transitional year. You go from Coach Day to Coach Newland. Obviously, the transition helps when Coach Newland's been there for so long.
Yeah, a lot of the same X's and O's, a lot of the same stuff.
Yeah, but you're seeing they're starting to get their footing a little bit as well, as you lose your point guard when you weren't really expecting to.
That's right.
And now you're having a lot of different players step up into different roles and do so at a high level. So let's jump to a Shack game that was one of our highlighted games of the week last week. Fayetteville 43, North Adams 26. Just a dominating performance for the Rockets. Christina Murphy led the Rockets with 16. Lily Carler had 9. They're now 9-1 on the season, more than likely 10-1. Just didn't get a result on a Thursday night. And didn't want to assume because it was on the road. They've got Batavia on Monday, and then a huge one in the Shack with at Fairfield on Thursday. Now, they dominated Fairfield the first game, but Fairfield's been playing pretty well. A third loss for Fairfield, though, would probably give at least a share for this Fayetteville team.
Oh, I would agree with that. I know you kind of brought my attention to a lot of the Fayetteville athletes in the fall, and you've been high on them all the way through. So I don't think this comes as a huge surprise to us, does it, that they're doing what they're doing on the hardwood?
No, I think we expected a lot of good things from Fayetteville. I mean, Murphy leads them in scoring at 11.8, Kara Rummel with 11, and then once again, Aubrey Barber, 9.7. Lily Carler with 9, Lindy Carler with 7.9, Autumn Waddell with 5.8. I mean, that's just,
that is just so hard to guard.
Yeah.
I mean, when you can put the fourth and fifth kid on the court, we talked about it in our boys segment earlier. When you can put that fourth and fifth kid on the floor that can score, what it does is it keeps you honest defensively, and then now that elite player gets to play in more one-on-one opportunities than maybe normal if not on such a balanced team.
Yeah, and where one of the things we highlighted coming into that game was that North Adams doesn't have a ton of balance on it because, Tinsley Burns is outstanding. I want to make sure Emma Pistol has been outstanding as well. But after those two, 17.9 for Burns, Pistol was 15.9. After them, the next highest score is 4.6 at Sophia Barlow. JC Davis does a nice job for them as well. Ava Pistol, Jada Harrison. So they've got some nice players.
Yeah.
Just they don't have the third option of scoring that like a Fayetteville does.
So the difference is a lot of times, and you know this, the dribble gaps start to close up a little bit more, right? There's a little bit more help here, a little bit more help here. You're able to run someone off the line and draw help to them and maybe not get punished by leaving a three-point shooter out here. So that's a great point there. But look, I mean, that North Adams program, they're what they are. They're going to get it figured out. And they're going to rebound and they're going to move forward. And that's just not a team that I would be thrilled to death come postseason to say, oh, I'm glad North Adams in my bracket.
Right. Yeah, when you've got two players that can score it like they can, it makes them really tough to match up with. Now, Eastern Brown did knock them off on Saturday. A really good win there. That was a come-from-behind win for Eastern Brown. So North Adams now 6-3. There's a tie now atop the Shack 1 between Eastern Brown and North Adams. So keep an eye out on that. A really good one for Eastern Brown in that aspect of, that was a game where, they're dealing with, losing a couple players that had transferred in.
That was going to be my next question. Are they past their halfway point now, so they are on? Okay.
Mm-hmm. So, really good win for, Coach Pickerel in Eastern Brown, as I believe that makes them 9-3 on the season. So, nice win for them there. So let's jump to our games of the week. We're going to have a streaming game on Thursday night. Will be an SVC game. It'll be the Kingston National Bank SVC game of the week. Will be from Adena and Frankfurt. Huntington at Adena should be an interesting one. Really should be fun. Like it's going to be kind of a clash of styles in that one because we know what Marley Halcombe can do. We know what Hosworth can do for Huntington. But they play completely different positions. Let's just see how they match up in this one.
I watched this matchup the first time in person, and it's just, Huntington's really struggled to find a consistent identity. I think Coach Yerg does a good job. I think he's tried to he's found some things he can do defensively, and then he's found some things he can do offensively. But a lot of times I don't know that they go together. A lot of times I don't know if the personnel groupings go together. And this is just me. This is my worst on his. This is just what I view. Okay, so then what happens is he has some pretty experienced guard play. So a lot of times they do stay in games. They play a lot of close games because they don't turn it over a lot. They against most teams. But again, they really have trouble scoring. So they rely on Houseworth quite a bit to score the basketball, to rebound the basketball. Then you go over to the Adena side, and they just execute you. Pay close attention to the first quarter of this game and who plays out in front, because both of these teams are pretty good at understanding the tempo their coach wants them to play. I would not want to play behind in this basketball game. That's kind of what happened to Huntington in the first game here, and then it ends up forcing you to play. What happens is when you're behind, you're forced to play a way you never wanted to play in the first place. Right. And then a lot of times you find out why you didn't want to play that way in the first place because it doesn't go well. So pay close attention to the first quarter and a half to see which team can play out in front. That'll be the team that can then dictate how the game's going to be played.
Yeah, 100% agree. So this one should be fun. We got some, Taylor Tisdale's been playing pretty well overall for Huntington. And then, Josie Mallow, those are probably the second options for each team. How will the Farrells play. One of them's probably going to deal with Hosworth a good bit. Hosworth does a great job of getting to the free throw line as well. But these are two really good players that are going to be back again next year for each team as well. So look for this one to be a pretty fun matchup.
They really struggle to get Hosworth touches. Adena does such a good job fronting the post, getting the help behind, getting ball pressure. We'll see some of the different creative ways maybe Huntington tries to use her in some of their sets. But again, not a big deal to be patient to go if you're playing ahead.
Right.
Play behind starts to get a little bit harder to do that, and that's when it can get away from.
Yeah, definitely can make things a lot more difficult. Then another one that should be really fun this week in the non-league, though, McClain at Waverly on Saturday. This one could be a tournament preview going down the road, as both teams have had outstanding starts to their season. McClain only with one loss, which was at Logan Elm. Waverly with only 2 losses. One of them was at Logan Elm as well. So keep an eye out on this one. This should be a really fun matchup. Paisley Pryor and Paige O'Brien. When I talked about the matchup in the first game, this is going to be a really good matchup in this one.
Yeah, I think so. This is a great matchup, and I think it's a game that both teams should be really excited for, kind of see where you're at. I mean, both teams having a great year. As you said, there's some really, really good athletes that are multi-sport athletes out there on the court in this one. So, yeah, I'm excited to take a look at that game and see how it plays out.
Yeah, it should be outstanding athletes all over the court. You have Royster, Henson, then some really tough teams as well. 2 teams that over the last couple of years just gotten better and better throughout their time. Should be a really fun matchup over on the hill over at Waverly.
Okay.
So not the downtown gym. We'll be on the hill. So if you haven't been there, go there. It's awesome. It's We've talked about it as it's probably one of the top 10 gyms in the Southeast District, and it's used pretty much for girls basketball and volleyball only. And it's just, it's a fantastic gym. So,
it really is.
Yeah, a lot of room too. So you're pretty much going to have no matter how many people are there, you pretty much have your choice of where you want to sit because of just how big it is. Should be a really fun matchup. Can't wait to see how that one plays out. 2 really good teams, and we kind of said this is a matchup that's going to have a lot of seeding implications for each one, because a win here is going to help your strength of schedule and just overall as well.
Yeah. No question, and that's why I think this is a good time of year to play this game, because it could really help you win or lose, just prepare for the postseason.
Yep, 100% agree. So let's jump to our last thing for this week will be our games to watch on the girls' side throughout. We're going to go kind of day by day. We're not going to hit every day in here, but we've got a lot of different days where there's games to go out and watch. I'll be covering this one on Monday. Wheelersburg at Waverly on the girls' side should be really fun. Once again, on the hill on Monday. Portsmouth-Clay at Green on Monday as well. White Oak at North Adams. And then Athens at Federal Hawking. I think all of those have a chance to be really tight games.
No question about it. Again, I'm intrigued to continue to watch Waverly grow. Man, they play a good schedule. So they do that. And then obviously that becomes a really, really important battle in that conference. The Clay Green, obviously Green's kind of proven to be another level, but Clay, we just highlighted earlier, doing such a good job in the strides they're making. Those are probably the 2 that jumped out at me in that list that you just read.
Yeah, then Federal Hawkins been playing really well, so them getting to play against that Athens team that has been really rolling since the start of the season for them. For Wheelersburg, they just lost to West last week. Waverly beats West, so this is a huge schedule or standings game in the SOC3, because a win here for Waverly, and they can make a big impact and add to their lead. Then we jump to Wednesday, Circleville at Fairfield Union. Fairfield Union really struggled at Logan Elm last week, but you've got a Fairfield Union team that's won a lot of basketball games. Circleville probably looking for some revenge after losing 3 of their only games last year to this Fairfield Union team.
Oh, no question. And look, we had Circleville a while back on the stream, and it's a nice basketball team when they're able to take care of the basketball and make sure that Edgington's touching it inside. She can impact the game in a lot of ways. But you know as well as I do, Fairfield Union's going to bring a certain mentality on the defensive end where that's not going to be as easy as it sounds to do, and that'll probably end up being the number one factor in the game.
Yep, 100% agree with that. Then Thursday, you've got Unioto at Piketon. Unioto pretty much dominated that game the first time, but that's the Piketon team, 10-3 for a reason. That's going to decide the SVC because that's a one-loss SVC team right now with Piketon, and that Unioto team has really been rolling as of late. So then you've got Minford at West. That's one we had on live stream before, and if Wistman can't go, that's going to be a really interesting game to follow. Then Eastern Megs at Federal Hockey. Now, Eastern just lost one this week to Waterford. Waterford really starting to play well, but keep an eye on that one.
Yeah, the Eastern Megs group is one that is kind of intriguing. You mentioned Fed Hock earlier. That was a group in our preview show that we had kind of an eye on, and we haven't talked about them as much during the regular season. So sometimes that can be good or bad. Sometimes you're flying under the radar there, and you find yourself the second half of the year, they can become a really dangerous team because, as we said all the way back in the preview, there's some talent there.
Right. Yeah, they've got some really nice pieces as well. So let's go to Saturday. You got Washington at Fairfield. That one's just a good athlete matchup in that one. Washington having a pretty nice season. And then Wheelersburg against Athens. That one has a chance to be a really fun one.
Yeah, well, there's no question about it. Just some really good programs there. They test themselves. The thing about Wheelersburg Athens is Athens' ability to guard the basketball, and Wheelersburg with their guard play there. Those are the types of matchups maybe you don't always get to see, and when you watch a team in this conference, you watch a team in this conference. It's always nice to see the non-league matchup, to see kind of some of the styles collide, to see who wins out.
Right, 100% agree. And then a couple of big ones this week. If you don't know about these, the Classic in the Country up at Berlin Highland, one of the best events for years now. Usually if our local teams are either they have some kids that are probably going to be recruited for college, or just you want to highlight them in some way, they go up and play in that. Unioto's played in it for the past few years. They're not going up this year, but I know Waterford has played in it before, but not this year as well. So this is a chance for these teams to go out and play on a pretty unique stage. Yep. The only thing I don't love is that our teams almost always play early. So them playing so early in the day, man, 10 a.m. is a tough time to play. It's just, But at the Classic in the Country, Fairland will be playing Bellbrook, which Bellbrook is one of the better teams in Division III, so that's a great matchup for them in Division V. Fairland's just been destroying teams in Ohio outside of the Portsmouth game, really, which was a really good game, obviously, a 5-point win for them. But Portsmouth will have two games up there. The first one against a really good Granville team, and then they've also got Cincinnati Sycamore as well. So two really good games for them to play. Should be fun contests for them. And then one of the newer events, which is also really well ran, and then they just didn't have a different name for it, the Classic in the City up in Pickerton. Should be a really fun event as well. Fairland will be playing Pickerton North in that one, so keep an eye out on that game. That's got a chance to be a really fun contest as well. And then Unioto will play two games over there. They will play Olentangy Berlin and then Harvest Prep, who has not lost. We had that game on live stream last year, and that was a really fun game. So that one's got a chance to really get up and down. Should be a fun weekend. So if you have not had a chance to go see those teams, that's a chance to go see them and some other really talented teams in one place.
Well, when you think Fairland, Portsmouth, Unioto, you're talking about three teams that you always want to try to win your league. You want to try to win as many games as you can. But if you're lucky enough to assemble a group in some way to come together that becomes a legitimate goal to play for the highest prize possible, you want to embrace that, and that's why they're playing these types of games. And win or lose, they have bigger fish to fry. They want to just continue to get better from the experience.
Yep, these are games that you can definitely get better from playing because you're playing some really high level teams. Yeah. And I think it was Coach Buchanan actually said it last week of like, you have to make sure you get better for these games. You can't just assume because you're going to go play these really good teams that you're going to get better. You still have to get better.
No, that's right. Yeah.
So a great opportunity for these teams in these events as well. So shockingly, we went pretty long.
Yeah.
Yeah, not a surprise, but there was a reason why we go long, and it's because there's a lot of really good stuff to talk about. Yeah. And as we mentioned at the beginning, we might have missed some stuff as well. So,
well, I started trying to think. Did we miss something? I know that got some clarification on Nelsonville boys. I forgot to mention that in the boys section. They have been going through some injuries, so they're going to be a factor in this what's becoming a wide open TVC Ohio there, depending on what all works out there. But that's something that jumped out. But we talk every week about going long, but I don't know how you could properly do it without going along.
Exactly.
When you consider the coverage area we have, and why are we going to talk about one conference and not another? Because across the board, the depth in some of these conferences is unbelievable on the boys and girls side.
Yep, 100% agree with that. So, do you have anything else to add?
Looking forward to a great week. What, 3 streams?
3 streams. Thursday, Kingston National Bank game of the week will be Huntington at Adena.
Is that us?
That is us. Okay. So that'll be on Thursday, and then we are at Lucasville Valley Friday and Saturday. On Friday, South Webster at Valley. That'll be you and Carson. And then on Saturday will be Chesapeake at Valley as well. Both of those games, all 3 of those games will be available on our SOSA YouTube page. Check out the Hainstall Healthcare Coaches Call-In Show. If you missed it on Sunday night, usually a really good episode. We actually had another coach verify that he's going to be coming on tonight as well. So we're going to have eight I believe 8 coaches call in. No, 8 coaches total. One is going to
be here.
Yeah, one will be here. 7 will be on the phone. So it should be a really full episode as well. So keep an eye on that. Look for all of our interviews, any articles going out through the week as well. So just a fun time to get out and watch some games. And as we mentioned with the games the games to watch, just a lot of different opportunities to see some good games as well.
Yeah, I've been spoiled as anything. I mean, I like to get out to the games, but there's been some nights. I was telling you the one night you were down there at the Tuesday night.
Yeah,
the Peebles game. I literally had like 4 tabs open on my computer, you guys on the TV, and I was even listening to a radio game, like with a headset. Yeah. I just enjoy following, and then that's not even counting the ones I have the video access to later. Mm-hmm. So, again, always appreciate the coaches that trust us with the huddle access so that we can best stay up on our local team.
Yep, 100%, because that's the best way for us to be able to help the local teams to get the coverage that they deserve, because a lot of kids working hard, a lot of coaches working hard, and it's just overall just a great area for sports, and we're it's a privilege for us to cover it. So
that's it.
That'll be all for this week. For Shayne Combs, I'm John Bruce. You've been watching Southern Ohio Sports Authority's Overtime, presented by Perfection One. Have a great rest of your week.